All right. Welcome back to the Caribou Media Outdoors podcast. With me this morning is the one and only Donnie Vincent. Welcome.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Oh, that's all good. It happens from time to time. There's sometimes where we miss each other, but you're here. It's worked out, so it's great. I
Yeah, thank
appreciate
you for
you.
having me. It's really an honor. I didn't realize you were when we were talking about doing a podcast. I didn't realize that you were in law enforcement.
Hmm.
In full transparency, if you had mentioned that up front, I probably would have been on the podcast a lot quicker. I have a lot of respect for law enforcement, but yeah, I appreciate this. I'm looking forward to a conversation.
Yeah, no, it's great. I kind of started just to give you a little bit of a background with me. I got into hunting later in life, so uh, with we kind of moved farther and farther away from the city and eventually ended up where we are now, which is on a hobby farm in the country. So kind of ran into other people in the community. I was coaching, helping coach my kids' hockey team, and everybody's like, "Oh, did you get your deer this year?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" No. And then we go to a local um, organic grass-fed, grass-finished butcher down the road, and the meat tastes different. And it was kind of like the wheels started turning, right? Well, if that tasted, what does everything else taste like, right? So that's kind of where I got into it. And um, a family member of ours has 300 acres up near Algonquin Park,
Oh,
not too far from there. So
yep,
he was like, "Come on up. We'll put you in a tree stand. Sit there, be quiet, don't move," kind of thing, right?
yeah, yeah,
And then so I just kind of sat there with a rifle and didn't see anything, heard a bunch of stuff, but didn't see anything. And I loved being out there, but I wasn't really connecting with the tool I had. Not that I didn't like rifles. I do. I use them at work and I have some behind me, but it wasn't until I picked up the bow that I was just like, okay, now
hmm,
this feels like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to be doing. And
yep.
I did archery from a young age. Kind of got into it when I was 7. My mom would take me up to her friend's farm, and her friend would go into the closet and pull out this, you know, um, like $30
Yep,
fiberglass bow, and like, here's some arrows. There's a hay bale out there. We want to chat. Get out of here, kid. Right.
yeah,
And so that kind of ignited it for me. And then school, I was on the archery team. Again, school didn't have a lot of money for archery, so the equipment wasn't fantastic, but it just kept me into it.
yep,
And then after that, my friend who I was on the archery team with bought a compound bow, and he's like, "You're not going to know what this is, but you're going to want one."
yeah.
So he's told me all about the one that he bought, and then I just kind of fell into it from there.
Okay.
So um, I usually like to go back in time with people and find out, when did you first get into hunting? Who was that for you, and what did that look like?
Sure. And I've actually been caught in a um, pickle lately in telling stories, and um, people ask me about where I got my start and who kind of got me into it. And I started on Rogan when I did Rogan's podcast. Um, I told him that I didn't grow up in a hunting family, and then right after I told him I didn't grow up in a hunting family, I went to transition into a story about my dad taking me hunting. And so a few people have reached out to me and said, "Wait a minute, you said you didn't grow up in a hunting family, but..." And so the funny thing is my dad. When I think back to being a kid, and I think back to the things that I was seeing in the house, and you grow up, and the instances that you have in each and every day is just what you have each and every day. So your life seems totally normal and totally, it's the facts. It's what is real to you. And so my dad had this amazing walnut gun case, and it had a glass front, had this cool little locking mechanism in the front. I'm sure you've seen them where you undo the key and the glass can slide. And he had a Remington 12 gauge semi-automatic in there. He had a single shot 12 gauge, a 22, a 243 bolt action rifle, and then it had a bottom drawer, and in that had all these different wood handled hunting knives and these old scopes and these padded cases,
Well,
all this stuff. And so, and, and then and then to that, he had this whole collection of outdoor life books and other books on wilderness survival and hunting and fishing. And so I was always in his books. I always asked him to show me his guns. When he would open the case, it was a holy grail moment for me because I could see the wood on the guns. I could feel him. He would show me how the actions work. But my dad never really went hunting. And occasionally he would go. I remember him going on a couple of trips where he would go with his buddies. But when I was growing up, and I don't mean this to sound like a charity case, but my dad drank a lot when I was growing up. And he wasn't violent, he wasn't abusive, but he just wasn't present. Like my dad would drink his beer, and he was very, very soft spoken, a man of very few words. And I'm a person that likes to talk. I'm a person that likes to tell stories and get engagements going. And so I struggled with that with my dad because I didn't want to talk to him. I didn't want to ask him questions, but he didn't really want to talk, didn't really want to answer questions. So I tell people I grew up in a house without hunting because I never really went hunting with my dad. He took me hunting maybe, you know, by the age of 15, maybe 3 times for squirrels.
Mm.
And but how I reference it is he held the kit of a hunter. And to this day, and my dad's gone now, to this day, I know his parents because I asked him. I know his parents were the ones buying him all these really cool old hunting books because he told me that. But I have no idea how he acquired these guns or why he went out and bought these guns. If he was more serious about hunting before I was born, and so I didn't really grow up in a hunting family per se, but it's all I ever thought about. And just like you, I started out with those little fiberglass bows that friends of
Mhm.
mine would have, red and green. I think they're
Yep.
little bear archery bows. And we shot those things all the time. And I was always in the woods. I think back, I'm sure you do this as well. How old are you?
44.
I'm 51. So I think back to the things, and I know a lot of people are kind of extending this through nostalgia right now, but I think back to the things that we used to do in the woods and the things that we don't let our kids do now. And it's
Mhm.
just mind boggling because I would leave my parents' house in the morning and I would be in woods the entire day. And I mean, crossing streams. I remember getting so wet and muddy, which would anger my mother, that I would walk around the neighborhood as much as I could to try to dry my clothes out before I actually had to go back inside because she would rip my head off.
Yeah.
But that's where I got my start was just from being in the woods, reading those books, seeing my dad's guns. And I don't know if that was an inspiration to me. When I think about it now, it's very inspirational, but I don't know if this just lived in my DNA, if I was just going to be a hunter no matter what, or if all of those things that he was referencing and all of these things that I got to see and touch and feel really, was the catalyst too. So I didn't start. It took me 8 years to kill my first deer. It took me 8 years to kill my first wild turkey. I, like you, would go in the woods so many times with groups of guys, and they'd be like, Donnie, sit here
Mhm.
on this log. And I'd sit there. This is, and never see anything. And, went through a lot of growing pains of understanding, like, how does the woods work? Where are you going to go? Who are you going to hunt with? Because when you're young and you're inexperienced, you will take any opportunity that you can get. So, a little bit of hunting with my dad. My dad and I started deer hunting together in high school, but that was 100% me. Like I would take him to the store to get guns. I would take him to the store to get his license. We would go out to the Sherburne County National Wildlife Refuge. It was basically I orchestrated the whole thing and would start taking him hunting in
Mm.
high school.
Yeah, it's funny how much you learn when you're just physically out there, like, when I was up at this family member's property, I'm sitting and eventually I got a tree stand and brought that up, and I remember I'm sitting there and I kept hearing this sound, and it sounding like the neighbor was kept starting and stopping his tractor and starting and stopping his tractor. I'm like, "What is wrong with this guy?" And I remember going back and I was like, "What's wrong with your neighbor and his tractor? Like, that's all I heard this morning." And he's
Hmm.
like, "My neighbor doesn't have a tractor."
Hmm.
I'm like, "Well, what the hell was that sound?" And I described it. He's like, "It's a grouse drumming."
Yeah.
I was just like, "Oh, okay, cool." Now I know, and it's like, just these little things or,
Hmm.
the first time I used a grunt tube, I called in a buck right behind me, and he
Hmm.
winded me and stomped and took off running, and then, Mike, the property owner, had come down to kinda see how I was doing, and he kind of waved at me to come here, and I got down and we walked up to the trail behind me, and he's like, if we follow the tracks, he's like, look, this is where he came from. He came right down behind you. I was like, I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know what I was doing when I was blowing on that thing, and it was amazing. So it's nice to hear that you say that it took 7 years for you to get your first year
Yep.
because I'm at the 7 year mark. I've killed a couple of bears,
Hmm.
um, but I'm still 0 for deer, and I've gone
Hmm.
every year, right? And it
Hmm.
for for me, that was my hunting time was a week for bear at Mike's place and a week for deer at Mike's place, and if I didn't get anything or see anything, see you next year, right?
Yep.
It wasn't until about 2 years ago, or a couple of years ago, we bought a cottage, and it's surrounded by crown land. So
Okay.
now I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna go this way and just kind of explore," right? So I've kind of found a couple of areas that I'm going back to. I've put cameras out. I'm seeing things now,
Hmm.
and it's just I kinda get stuck, and I know a few people have mentioned the same thing where you get to an area and you're like, "This looks like the spot that should hold deer, or if I was a deer, I'd probably hang out in here."
Hmm.
And then you don't see anything, or you put out a camera and they're only coming at night. And I
Hmm.
remember talking to more experienced friends of mine, and they'd be like, "You're not there yet. Keep going. You got to find more sign. You got to find more this, more that." So it's all kind of coming around as a learning experience. But um, it is nice when I hear people that I look up to, like yourself, saying that it
Hmm.
took years for yourself too. So that's good.
It takes time because, like I said, when I would meet people, if I didn't want to hunt just on public land, when I would meet people, and they say, "Hey, come hunt on our 40 acres with us," it'd be a group of guys or whatever, and I'd say, "Yeah, I'd love to, great," and I'd go out there, and again, it was always gun season, so that's when I say it took me so long to kill a turkey when I first started turkey hunting in the state of Minnesota, I could only draw a tag on the fifth or sixth season. So it was the end of the season. The grass was a foot tall. The turkeys are gobbling, but still, it's much less than they were gobbling. You could only hunt. It was a 5 day season. You could only hunt till noon. There's a lot of restrictions, and I just wasn't. I had 5 days to go to a farm that I didn't know and try to figure it out, just like what you're talking about. You're taking a little slice of time and a little slice of opportunity, and if you don't get it done in that 5 days or 7 days, see you next year, just like you said. And it was the same thing when I hunted guns with deer. But then I picked up archery, much like you just said. Is I remember I was so nervous. This was in this was after high school. So this was in college. I went to a archery store in St. Cloud, Minnesota called Archery Country. And I was in town doing some other things, but I drove past the store and no one was in the parking lot. And I was like, I felt like I was buying drugs or something. I was so nervous to go in there and actually like engage. I drove around the store a couple of times and finally I got up the courage of like, I'm going to go in there. And I parked and I walked in the front door and this guy named Mike was working behind the counter and I don't know where he is today. We haven't kept in touch or anything, but I'll never forget. I walked in, the door dinged, and he was putting stuff away. And he's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I said, "Great." And he's like, "What can I help you with?" And I said, "I've never shot a compound bow." And he's like, "That's going to change right now."
Yeah.
And I said, "It is." And he goes, "Yep." And I go, "What if I can't?" I go, "What if I can't get it drawn back?" He goes, "Then we'll go down and pound it." She's like, "Well, that's going to change right now." So he went and got a bow, went and got arrows. No sales pitch whatsoever. I He's just like, he grabbed the bow, arrows, and we went to the bale. And I had like whatever, it's 55-pound bow or whatever. And I came back to full draw, and I'm sitting there looking at the target, and I put my finger on the trigger and shot. And I shot one arrow, and I turned around and looked at him, and I said, "I'll never rifle hunt again."
Mhm.
And he started laughing. He goes, "No, no, no." He goes, "That's not what this is about. But what it is about is when you pick up a bow, you get to enter the woods before 90% of the people. And you get now 3 months or
Mhm.
4 months to hunt deer and to learn how to hunt deer. Then 7 days when everyone is out there. Like, still to this day, gun season for me. Now, I'm much better at gun hunting now, and I'm much better at finding the needle in the haystack now with a gun. But gun hunting for me was kind of much like you, is find this spot, sit down, you only have 7 days, or move around a little bit, sit down, you only have 7 days. If it doesn't work out, see you next year.
Mm-hmm.
But when I finally got this bow and I started bow hunting, it was immediately, I think I killed my first buck with a bow in my like maybe my fourth hunt, and it was a 120-inch, outside of its ears, 7-pointer. I thought it was the biggest deer in the world, and shot him. Absolutely smashed him, and he ran 30 yards and tipped over dead. And I was like, this is it. This is exactly what I've been looking for my entire life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of had a similar moment. So in 2015, when I kind of dove deep to the bottom of the swimming pool with this bow hunting thing, I kind of learned all about it. I didn't have any money to buy a bow. I didn't want to go in and buy something that was $400 or $500 that I'd be upgrading later. I knew I'd be going hard in the paint with it because of my past with going through high school and everything. And I knew I was going to love it. So I just wanted to take in as much information as I could and learn as much as I could. So I go to the local store, which is about half an hour away from here. And I walked in there and they're like, "How can I help you?" And I'm like, "Just so you know, just so we're on the same page, I'm just looking." I'm not like, "Oh no, like what do you want to take a look at?" And I'm like, "Again, you can give me your best sales pitch. I'm just here to kind of immerse myself in this." And he says, "Well, what do you want to try?" And before going into other stores, it was like they'd be locked up. You couldn't pull the bow back. And obviously, right, they don't want everybody, you know, people coming in without experience breaking their stuff. I get it. But this guy was going like just giving me the time of day. He was like, "What do you want to like what are you interested in? What's your draw length?" I said, "I don't know." He's like, "Hold your arms out." He measured me up. They took the one off the shelf that I was interested in. They set it all up for me. And I'm like, again, because I saw them working on it, putting it in the press. I'm like, "Guys, like, I'm just here to look," right?
Yeah.
He's like, "How are you going to know what you like and what you want if you don't get a chance to try it out?"
Yeah.
And I shot 3 arrows, and then, it was like, I don't know, 15 yards. They were all touching, and I put it down on the counter, and I said, "Thank you." And I walked out, and I got in the car, and I was like, "Damn it." Now it's even the drive to do this is even more now, and I've just
Yeah.
had a taste of it, right?
Yeah.
So that was when I kind of went deep into YouTube, and I found Tim Burdett from Solo Hunter, watched all the Solo Hunter episodes, and that must have triggered the algorithm for me. And that's when, I don't know how it all works, to be honest with you, but
Nobody does.
nobody does. Who We Are popped up in my feed, and I clicked on it. And I don't think I blinked for the 7 minutes that it was. And everything that you were saying was like a checkbox in my brain. Like, this is exactly how I look at and how I want to be when I'm successfully doing this. You were just hitting all the marks. And I don't know if any of that was scripted when you're sitting on the tire of the Super Cub, or if that was just right off. But man, unbelievable. And I know you've heard that probably a million times about that clip, but it was just spectacular. And the music and everything that just came together. I watch it all the time. Every year I rewatch it.
I appreciate that.
It's
No,
just like,
it was not scripted. That was a project for National Geographic. They wanted to do a TV show where I was the host, but I wanted to live in the realm of hunting in the TV show, and they wanted to live in the realm of me being like wilderness survival and that type of stuff. And so they said, if you want to do a hunting component, then will you please send us a video, just raw cut. Do not make it pretty. Do not put any production value into it. Just send us a raw cut as to who you are, why you hunt, and sell us on why we should do a TV show on hunting. Because our pitch was that I wanted to go live with tribes that still hunt and fish to acquire all their game and meat.
mhm,
I wasn't going to hunt with them. I was going to hunt with them, but I wasn't going to be hunting. I just wanted to go and live where they lived and go experience the things that they experienced as hunters and gatherers. And so that's what I was trying to pitch them. And so I sat on the tire of the Super Cub, and it went horribly, to be completely honest with you. I would get into a line of thinking of what I wanted to say, and then I would fumble my words. It would frustrate me. I'd shut down, and then I would do it again. And the whole time that I'm recording this, a huge storm. I was in the Northwest Territories. A huge storm is coming up the valley. I can see it. And I know as soon as that storm hits us, we're done recording, right?
Yeah.
So like it's
Yeah.
going to rain for like 3 days. So I can see this rain coming. So I have the anxiety of it's gonna be a wrap here
Yeah.
relatively soon. So I just would sit down, you know, poise, get my thoughts, do it again, do it again, do it again. All these false starts, and then I sent all the stuff to Kyle Nicolite, our editor, and I'm like, "There's nothing here, but watch this, and when I get home, we'll record a fresh one,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll actually do something, and then we'll send it over to National Geographic." And within, I don't know, maybe 2 days, he sent me that exactly what you see now.
Oh,
And he made that from those. I had like two sections where I did a long take, and they went well, and he just stitched them together, and then we sent that to National Geographic, and that wasn't ever to be seen by the public. We
mm-hmm.
weren't ever going to release it. And then a year or maybe a year and a half after he produced it, he's like, "Hey, I want to put this out in the public," and I was totally against it because I talk about PETA and I talk about all this stuff, and I said, "No, I don't want to draw that attention to myself." And then eventually he just won the argument. And we put it out, but I appreciate you watching it every year. And
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So that then led me to watch the Rivers Divide trailer. And then, of course, I go right to your website and I buy the Rivers Divide and Terra Nova on DVD.
yep, yep.
And they show up at my house, and I walked right over to the DVD player, and I guess I watched them out of order. I watched Terra Nova first. And I don't know if I didn't put two and two together before I bought it, but when you're on the boat and you said, "I can't believe it took me 15 years to get to Newfoundland," I was like, "He's in Canada? Oh my God, this is even better." Right? And the woodland caribou is like my favorite animal. I love the look at them. I love their hide. I love their antlers. I love the color of their antlers. I love how they all form. It's just, and I keep looking at trying to get out there, and it'll happen one day, but probably not until I retire at this point. But it's definitely at the tippity top of my list.
That's that bull right there.
Yeah.
Terra Nova. Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. They it's crazy. When I started bow hunting, it was $2,000 to go to Newfoundland and hunt woodland caribou, and it's now like 20,000 or something.
It is. Yeah, it's 20 to 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I should do it quicker than waiting.
Absolutely insane. What? And do you have to pay non-resident?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm in Ontario, so I'm still technically.
Yeah.
It's bizarre. It's wild. I don't know.
It's not normal. Yeah.
I went out to BC a couple of years ago. My wife's cousin does some guiding out there. So one Christmas, she surprised me. She said, "You're gonna for Christmas this year." She's like, "The only reason why I'm telling you ahead of time is because you have to change your holidays, but you're gonna go out to BC and go hunting with Daniel." And we were in the car. We were going Christmas shopping at the time, and we're in a parking lot, and I turned to her and I was like, "Don't, you can't joke around about stuff like that, because that's like one of the biggest things that I want to do, and it's not funny, right? Don't joke around." She's like, "No, seriously, like, you're going to get on a plane and you're going to fly there and you're going to go for like 10 days. And I said, "First of all, Daniel isn't a hunter and he's not a guide, and I'd need him to probably be both in order to make this work, or I'd have to go through an outfitter, or he's got to host me. Like, I'm trying to go through all the things." They had come for a family reunion a few years before. And she said, "You're not listening to me. After they left here, he's now gotten into hunting, and he's now a guide, and he works for an outfitter, and you're going." And then, of course, the wheels start spinning, right? Oh my God, I need a backpack. I need better boots. I'd love to upgrade my rangefinder, but there's a lot of things I don't have yet. So I just like went down this rabbit hole, and And then we got closer to the date, and I was like, I'm not nervous of flying, but I'm nervous of my stuff not showing up.
Yeah.
And then the whole trip is over, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of turned into a family thing. She said, "Why don't we do this? We've always wanted to do a cross Canada drive." So she's like, "Since you can only be off work from this day to this day," she's like, "We'll pack the truck with all your stuff. Our daughter and her will drive out there. They'll have some family time. My son and I will fly out with nothing because it's all in the truck, and
Yep.
then we'll meet there. We'll have some more family time. They'll fly home. We'll go hunting, and then we'll drive. We'll get the cross
Yep.
Canada drive back." So that was incredible. That experience was wild. It was awesome to do it with my son because he'd been asking me to take him hunting for years, and
Yep.
I didn't feel like I was in the position to teach him anything because I was still learning myself,
Mhm.
which I think is one of the biggest things that I kick myself for because all he wanted to do was spend time with his dad.
Mhm.
Didn't matter that I didn't know what I was doing, right?
Mhm.
But I kind of was like, how am I gonna teach him if I I'm got nothing up here yet either.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it was great. We went out, we had some cool encounters. We didn't end up arrowing an elk. We got close, but it didn't come together. And we came home and I took all the footage and put something together and put it out. But it's I have I have unfinished business in British
Mhm.
Columbia. Let's just say
Mhm.
so.
That's awesome. I love
And
that.
and the stuff that you learn, like we were saying, doing things that it takes time. We had only been tent camping when we were camping, like
Yes.
summertime camping,
Mhm.
right? So now we're at the base of a mountain and it's 17 degrees during the day, but then it drops to -1 at night. So I'm jumping in my sleeping bag like we're camping, wearing, very little. And I wake up at like 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm shivering because
Mhm.
it's now -1.
Mhm.
And I look over and he's bundled up in all the Sitka gear that we bought.
Mhm.
He's got his hat on and his gloves. And I'm thinking, how did he have the wherewithal to do that? And I didn't. And I had like a kind of like a force ghost moment from Star Wars, like um, with oh, what's his name from Sitka? It's killing me. Anyway, Barclow, John Barclow was like,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
get your stuff back on, like
Yeah.
rewarm
Yeah.
yourself, right? Because
Yeah.
I've watched all that already. So yeah, all these little things that you kind of pick up as you, and it sounds like everything I'm giving you as an example is me failing, but it's all part of it, right? Like
Yeah.
it takes time to.
I mean, we fail, uh, yeah, if you pay attention to Instagram or whatever, and you think that that's real life, which it's not, but if you think that's real life, you look at some of these guys, and I'm not going to name names, but you're like, oh my word, it's just success after success after success, and
Mhm,
then myself, it's really funny when I measure my success in the time that I'm spending a field, the things that I see, the things that I'm experiencing. That's how I measure my success. And so to myself, and it's not me coming up with a list of achievements to where I can at the end of the day go, okay, I had a successful season. That's not what I mean. What I mean is every day that I'm outside, every sunrise I watch, every sunset that I watch, and all the things I experience, my heart is full. My mind is full going into the next day. I don't have anything to profess. And I remember when I used to do all the hunting shows, I don't even go to any of the hunting shows really anymore and walk around and
mhm,
and talk to people and talk to companies and sign autographs or whatever. I don't really do any of that stuff anymore, and I never even really did. I don't mean like celebrity stuff, but just going around talking to companies. And and guys would come up to you and they'd say, "Hey, people don't really know how to engage with one another." So they'd come up to you and say, "Hey, how's your show going?" Was is
yeah,
the classic question, and "Oh, that's good." And how was your season? And I remember um, one of the better seasons that I had. This is years and years and years ago. I had arrowed a doe. That's
mhm,
it. I had been to Alaska. I spent like 30 days in Alaska. Didn't get anything. Had an amazing trip. In fact, much of the footage that you see in Who We Are
mhm,
was from that trip in Alaska, of which I didn't get anything. Um, I literally had a pack of wolves 10 yards around me walking
Amazing.
all around me, like looking me right in the face. Everyone was super calm. I mean, I could see it was as though I was walking amongst 10 dogs at a breeder or something like that. But they were all wolves, and it was just me and them in the wilderness. And so that's some of the wolf footage that you can see there. And so all of these things happened. I went on some deer hunts and I saw some massive whitetails that I just couldn't get. And I watched fights and all this different stuff. But I shot a big doe. I shot a really big doe on a November morning. Um, and the guy was like, "How was your season?" I said, "I had an amazing season." He's like, "What'd you kill?" And I said, "I shot a like 160-pound field dress doe."
Mm-hmm.
And he started laughing and he's like, "No, seriously." And I go, "Yeah, seriously." He's like,
Mm-hmm.
"You've killed a doe this year." And I said, "Yeah."
Yep. It was great.
He was embarrassed for me, and I to this day, I just completed my third moose hunt in Alaska this September, and I'll go back next September. But I haven't killed a moose yet. But if you look at other people on Instagram or whatever it is, and they're killing. I got another 7-inch bull. I got another 80-inch bull. Everybody's different, and everyone's going to different spots and are having different experiences. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like you having these alleged failures, like that is extremely common.
Mm-hmm.
Extremely common. And I run into people at airports all the time. They recognize me. They come over. They want to talk, which I love. And I go, "Hey, where are you guys going?" "Oh, we just were in BC." "How'd it go?" "Well, we didn't get one." And there's always, and I'm not saying these people are doing this, but it's natural what we do. There's always this list of excuses, right? But really
Yep.
what it is we're just hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the wind is wrong, and sometimes the weather's horrible, and sometimes the elk, for whatever reason, goes up that super steep incline instead of taking the elk trail that you were sitting on that he was supposed to take. And there's just a whole bunch of, and that's why you just have to keep hunting and keep learning and keep seeing these circumstances kind of develop in front of your eyes. And occasionally they're going to go perfectly well, and you're going to get the bull of a lifetime or shoot the cow of a lifetime or whatever it is. But um, yeah, those failures are. I mean, look at what you learned sleeping, and I'm sure you learned about hiking boots, and I'm sure you
I'll,
learned about how to carry your weapon and all of that stuff.
yeah, I'll never do that again.
Hmm. No, I went to Australia one year, and I took I don't even know what it is. It's like a 60-degree sleeping bag. It's paper thin.
Mm-hmm.
It's this big, and I was like, "Oh, this is great," because we're in the desert basically all day every day. Well, what happens in the desert? During the day, it's 110 degrees Fahrenheit. But what's it at night? It's 20.
Mm-hmm.
And so all that trip, I wore everything I possibly could. I was in that tissue paper sleeping bag, and I shivered. I think we were there for 2 weeks. I shivered uncontrollably all night for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Learned a lesson.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
So what was it that drove you to, well, sorry, going back to Instagram for a second, whenever I see people post like a doe and then they automatically have to defend the fact that they shot a doe, or if it's a buck and they automatically defend the fact that I know it's small, but blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
The first thing I always say to all of those that I come across is don't ever apologize for
Hmm.
what you've decided to shoot, because that's such a personal thing. And it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. That's for you.
Hmm.
That was in that moment, the alarm bell went off in your head and you wanted to have that experience and you had it. Just celebrate that. Don't feel like you have to be like, "Oh, I know it's not as big as everybody else's," or I hate that, you know?
Yep. Same.
And yeah, it's a shame that it's kind of come to that. It's like we're drifting away from just being outside and experiencing, it's like when I go up to my cottage now, I'll get up early in the morning. I'll make coffee, I'll walk down to the dock, and I'll slip into the water, or I'll sit on the dock, and it's early enough where nobody's awake.
Hmm.
The water is like glass. The mist is coming up off the water,
Hmm.
and then the fish start jumping. And
Hmm.
I'm like, this moment right here is exactly what I need to experience. And
Yep.
it's you can't put a price tag on that, because when we bought it during COVID, and I remember not too long after we signed on the dotted line, the real estate agent called us and she's like, "No one can go anywhere. Everybody's buying property. I could sell your cottage for 3 times what you paid for it
Yep.
tomorrow.
Yep.
And at first you're like, "Oh my god, like that would pay off my mortgage here at the
Mhm.
house, like that would change our life."
Mhm.
But then I'd never get back into owning a property like that again.
Mhm.
And the whole purpose of it was to pass it down to the kids
Mhm.
and have these experiences. And I like, no. And she was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Sorry, not interested." And
Mhm.
my mind keeps going back to those moments where you can't you can't put a price tag on that stuff. You know, the fact that you're up there, you have to light a fire to keep the place warm. I know I have to cut wood today because I burned too much last night. I got a little silly. I love making big fires, right?
Yeah.
And that's all stuff I'm excited for. I don't even think about my phone because
Yeah.
I don't want to. I just want
Yep.
to distance myself from that thing. I usually I'll take some photos and stuff, but what do they say? It takes like 20 minutes or longer of you disconnecting from your device to kind of
Mhm.
just start to engage with what's around you.
Mhm.
And I think that we're losing the experience that's right in front of our face because we're focusing too much on what everybody else is doing online and how we can kind of fit into that.
That's correct. We are. It's. We're not losing it. It's lost. It's.
Okay.
It's. I mean, I hope. Uh. Yeah. I laugh. We laugh. One of our photographers here at Manta, Forrest Rose, awesome young kid, awesome human being, soulful. Like he's both of our main photographers. One is in his mid 20s, the other one is in his mid 30s. Both of them act in as though they were born in 1879. That's just it's they're absolutely perfect for us.
Yeah.
Um, and but he and I will laugh because we'll be in the Arctic Circle and we use our phones. So a lot of times when we're capturing content, it ends up being, and this is my description. I'm not celebrating our work, but we end up capturing high level content. Nice cameras. We take our time. We set up shots. We film what is real. We're not. Nothing's fake. We're not. We don't redo setups. We're just literally very careful about how we film, what we do, like where. And when I mean setups, I mean we're looking at where we cross the river, but we're also but then Forrest or William will find a really gorgeous shot of us crossing the river, and so that's what I mean when we talk about setups, and we're very careful with it. But we've been filming more and more bootleg kind of content with our phones, just because people really like that
Right.
crappy raw, like, and
Hmm.
so we do some of that. So we have our phones on us, and then I use my phone with in conjunction with my Garmin InReach to communicate with at home, with the office, and then with family. And but anyway, we laugh about how often we're in the Arctic Circle and we'll open our phones, and without us even making a decision, we'll click on Instagram.
Yeah.
Obviously Instagram's not going to open. We don't have internet. We're nowhere.
That's
We're
right.
not within 500 miles of internet, but we
Yeah.
click on Instagram, and then we'll start laughing because we didn't even want to click on Instagram. And so
Hmm.
yeah, anyway, but it's the disconnect is real. As they say, the dopamine that we get from our phones is real. And so, but the more we have, um, I talked about this on a recent podcast, and Forrest and I, the things that I end up talking about with gentlemen like you, we end up expanding on when we talk later, and seeing where these little ideas and notions that we delve into, where they go. And I said, I don't know, and I mean this, I don't know if I'm an idiot or if I have a greater understanding of the world, because I don't want the phone and the computer and the streaming network and the creating a separate life in the meta universe and having all of these falsities that I wrap myself around, all this stuff with AI, whatever. I would much rather sit on the dock.
Hmm.
You and I sit on the dock and have a cup of coffee and watch trout rising and seeing how calm the water is and the steam coming off. I That is something that I find incredibly alluring, and that is where I want to go and explore and watch. And so, am I a simple-minded person in which I am entertained by such natural biorhythms, if you will, or do I have a complex understanding of what is really the relationship between the wild world and the mechanized world and things like that? And I honestly don't. I don't know what the answer is there, but I would much rather split wood and build a
Mm.
wood fire, and much rather go for a hike and or go ice fishing or duck hunting or deer hunting or whatever it is. I would much rather go do that stuff than to go and be entertained in any other form or fashion.
I think, uh, I think you're absolutely right there. You've definitely got it figured out. I think do you think the pendulum has swung too far in the digital direction and we can't get back to where we should be?
Yeah, I think I don't know. Yeah, hopefully we can. Hopefully it's an individual. It's just like lifting weights or eating right or
Right.
reading books, whatever it is. Hopefully, human beings are going to understand. They say it's constantly swinging, right? Hopefully, It starts to swing back to where people are more invested in themselves, and in that, put the phones down and
Mhm.
get away from screens or whatever.
So at what point did you kind of decide, or what was it? Was there a moment, or was there just an overall interest, or was it from you being a biologist and working out in the field? What was it that caused you to decide that hunting around your house or wherever you normally go wasn't enough and you needed to take these epic trips?
Oh, that was immediate. That was immediate. Like my dad is really funny. I didn't understand this. So my dad had this big book called "Big Game Animals of North America" from Jack O'Connor. And one of the animals that I'm absolutely in love with, kind of like how you spoke about the woodland caribou, one
Mhm.
of the animals that I'm absolutely in love with is the Dall sheep. And so I never really understood, why is it the Dall sheep that spoke to me? Why is it that I love seeing those white sheep and where they live in the Northwest Territories and the Yukon and Alaska and British Columbia, northern British Columbia, and then one day it occurred to me, and I don't know if this is why, but I opened that book to reread it for the probably 100th time. And Jack goes through all the North American animals and he talks about his hunting experiences with them. He tells a couple of hunting stories and he talks about the natural history of the animal. Well, I open the book and the Dall sheep is the first animal that he covers in the book.
Mm.
And so I wonder if that's where I've had that. But I've always wanted to travel. I recently had a guy on one of our Instagram posts. He kind of suggested that I was a trust fund baby. There's no way I would have been able to do the stuff that I've done now without having my parents having money. And I
Mhm.
grew up in a household that didn't have money. My parents didn't. If I wanted something that was outside of the realms of normal provisions, if I wanted something extravagant like a fishing rod or a dirt bike or whatever, my parents would help me in the regards of they'd say, "Okay, you now have a job." I worked when I was younger. I worked on a strawberry pine tree Christmas tree farm. You now have a job. You have to save this amount of money to buy a dirt bike or this amount of money to buy a fishing rod. Like, we
Yep.
will help you kind of see the vision, but you are paying for this. And so that's what I grew up doing. And I knew uh, one of the animals that I hold most near and dear to my heart. I'm actually writing about this right now because we have a new film that's about to come out. Is caribou, because when I was younger, um, caribou was an animal that I could afford if I could go unguided and I could just take a bush flight into the Arctic. And so that's what I started doing at a very early age. I think my first trip to Alaska was in 96.
Okay.
And I think I've missed maybe 1 year or 2 years that I haven't gone to Alaska since 1996.
Wow.
And so I've gone at least once, if not two or three times every year to Alaska to do self guided hunts for black bear, caribou, and moose. And then some hunts I've done for Dall sheep and things like that where I've drawn tags. But I did a black bear hunt. It still was one of the coolest trips. I think back to those days, and I lived on a fishing vessel that a guy converted his where the what do they ever call it? The hatch where they would keep the fish on a trawler or whatever. He
Mhm.
converted that hatch into bunk beds, and he stopped commercial fishing and it would just start doing like ecotourism trips, but really it was mostly around hunting. So his name was Captain Ron Johnson. He's an amazing man. went out of Whittier, Alaska, and we went all over in the Prince William Sound where the Exxon Valdez sank back in the day, and we hunted black bears, and it was the most incredible trip. It was the perfect first big trip of my life. I went there with a rifle and hunted black bears with him, and it would be a very long story, but I ended up wounding a black bear on that trip, clipped its front leg. I think the bear's totally fine. But we looked for that bear, and then that night I went back on his boat. And you and I could talk further about this on another podcast or whatever, but I was like, "Hey, Ron, I don't think I'm going to kill a bear on this trip." And he sat down. He was a very quiet guy, and he sat down and he's like, "Well, hey, I'm going to put a pot of coffee on and grab us some snacks, and then we'll sit at the table and talk about it." And I said, "Okay." So he came over with a cup of coffee, gave me a cup of coffee, and we were just chit chatting and eating. And he's like, "Why don't you want to shoot a bear?" And I said, Man, I don't know that I'm a hunter. Like, I really love being here, love
Mhm.
seeing all the animals. I remember sitting next to the streams, and the bears would come out, and I'm watching the fish go up the stream, and I was describing to him everything that I was seeing and falling in love with. I could see the bears' eyes and their nostrils, and cubs were coming out, and sows, and there's eagles and seagulls and salmon, and and he just said to me, he's like, "Man, I've had a lot of hunters on this boat," and he's like, "I don't think I've ever had anyone that was more connected to hunting or being a hunter or the wilderness than you."
Mhm.
And I was maybe 20-ish at the time, early 20s. And so he's like, "Let's go out tomorrow night. Let's hunt." He's like, "If a big boar comes out, you can make your decision then. If you don't want to shoot him, no problem. I'll come in with the boat and pick you up. If you want to shoot him, um, you know, you made a mistake now on the hunt. Now you can settle down and revisit the engagement between you and the bear, and the engagement between you and the rifle, and the understanding of shooting a rifle well." And so I went out that night, and it was an incredible night, and a bear came out, and I just took my time. I was sitting behind a root wad, and that bear came out and was fishing, and I literally dropped him in his tracks. He didn't wiggle, he didn't moan, he didn't move a leg. It was a 7 millimeter Remington Magnum, and I absolutely flattened him. And skinning that bear, and butchering him and everything, it was incredible, man. I was in between these two mountains. These two salmon rivers were running out. Thousands of fish were swimming up these rivers. And when I shot that bear, I could see humpbacks out in the bay
Oh,
exhaling out of the ocean that day was glass calm, and humpbacks were just, and the
wow.
seagulls were all squawking because they're feeding on the fish. And there's, like at any one time, I could see like 20 bald eagles feeding on, and there's a huge glacier behind me. It was everything that I'd ever read about in the books, that I wanted to experience, that I wanted to see, what I thought it was going to be like. This was it.
Mhm.
And it was perfect because there was no hardship for me, or very little hardship, outside of wounding a bear. And I had to go through those sorrows but I was sleeping on Ron's boat at night, and he would find these calm harbors, and we'd anchor up. And so it was warm, and the food was great. And he was an awesome human being, or is an awesome human being. And, and then my next hunt that I wanted to do was a drop hunt in the Arctic, where I would rent an airplane. They'd fly me in, drop me off. And those hunts were much, much harder, way more physical, way more cold, if you will, way more uncertain. And, uh, and that's where I really fell in love with Caribou, because Caribou was everything I ever wanted to experience wrapped in a bow. It was,
Mhm.
you're getting dropped off by yourself in the wilderness. No one's coming to help you. The pilot leaves. He doesn't care if you're successful. He
Yep.
doesn't care if you fall and break your leg and die. You're a client of his. You're how he puts food on the table for his family. And I fell in love with that style of hunt, where in the first time I did it, I rented their tent. It was a drop camp. So I used their tent, their cots, all that stuff.
Mhm.
But I didn't like it because it was all, you know, um, it was just all the bare minimum of what you needed to pull a hunt like that off. And so right then I started looking at, okay, what is a nice tent and why? What is
Right.
a nice sleeping bag and why? What is it? What am I cooking on and why? And then so I started developing my kit and my understanding. back then, but it was, I mean, I've wanted to do it since the day I understood it, and it'll never go away. I have 2 trips booked for this year in Alaska, this May and then next September, and I'm gonna stay there as long as I can and live in
Wow.
that country as long as I can.
So how do you prepare for something like that? Like, I know if I'm going away for a week, I always think about, what needs to happen here? How do I make it easier for the family? Do I have to cut the grass? Do I have to, when you're gone for 20, 30 days, like what kind of how does that work for you in terms of being prepared? Like what kind of things go through your mind of what you have to be ready for?
Well, it's definitely difficult, right? Because you need a support team, right? And
Right.
so I have people that I work with here through Sigmanta that stay back in town, and they're handling some of the ongoings of business. As far as where my cabin is, the weeds get as high as a small child or a college
I
student,
bet.
and so
Yeah.
like that just
College student.
that just happens. Um, and but yeah, it's more so getting my mind right, getting my body right, getting my
Mhm.
gear right. That's the stuff that I worry about more. But I do go through. I'd be lying to you. This isn't you know everything's not sugar plums and daydreaming. There's many times that I'm in this cabin, like packing gear. Bags are heavy. Things aren't packing down the way that I was anticipating, because when I go, man, I'm flying my whole camp with me. Like,
Right.
I'm bringing up a lot of guys that go and do these trips. They're borrowing gear from the outfitter, or they're using the outfitter's gear. They're either renting gear from the outfitter or they're guided, so they're using the outfitter's gear. But I'm flying up my tent, my stoves, fuel, food, everything. And so um, I actually, this next year, um, when I go, I'm going up brown bear hunting in May, and when I go up, I'm going to start bringing stuff that I'm going to start needing for my moose hunt. I'm going to fly some extra stuff up, but it's a lot, and it can get stressful when the season is coming up, and understanding that not only am I going to Alaska for 20 days, but as soon as I come home, then I have a commercial shoot
Right.
like 6 days later. That happened this year. We had a shoot for Shields. We shoot all of Shields. Do you know what a Shields is?
Yep. Yep.
Yep. So we shoot all of the hunting and fishing content for Shields through Sigmanta. So I came home from Alaska. I was only home for like 3 days. Then I had to go to Montana for a week and film elk hunting for Shields. And so, you're starting to also look in lining that type of stuff up. And but it can be very stressful getting gear together and um, getting set to go, and then it's, of course, it's, traveling with um, employees, and
Mhm.
traveling with camera equipment and filming everything. Also, that's another thing that is a difficulty, is being there are people that enjoy being filmed and are very good on camera. I'm not one of those people. I do not enjoy being filmed at all. I want to tell these stories, I want to share it with people, but I do not enjoy being in front of the camera at all. So it's just a lot of, you know, I'm not going, if you and I were going caribou hunting,
Mhm.
just you and I were going caribou hunting, and we're like, hey, we're not bringing cameras outside of just taking photos or taking little videos with our cell phones or whatever, I would be way more excited to go caribou hunting with you and do that than I would
Mhm.
be to go and caribou hunt and do a full caribou hunting film. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yep.
So
Yeah, there's
it's just,
times where I'll go up in a tree stand if I'm whitetail hunting, whatever, and I always bring cameras with me because I wanna capture it and
yep.
relive it and watch it again and show people, and there's times where I'll get up there and I'll be like, my bag's heavier than it should be because I got camera stuff in there, and I'm like,
Mhm,
part of me just wants to leave it in the bag.
mhm,
I'm just gonna this is just gonna be my moment, and that's just the way it is, and then a few minutes later, I'm like, "Nah, I should probably set it up because if something does happen, I'm really gonna wanna see it again." Right?
mhm,
So, yeah, I can see that, really playing games with you, and there's definitely something to be told that, it's like when you go to a concert. When I was growing up, concert tickets were $40, you'd go, nobody had a phone.
mhm,
Phones weren't even allowed. I don't There
mhm.
was a time where you couldn't even bring a cell phone in, they'd kick you out,
Yep.
and you're there experiencing the concert, and if you weren't there, guess what? You didn't get to experience it.
Yep.
Now, you go to a show. I take my kids to see things because I want them to experience it too. And we'll go to a show, and the first thing that happens, and I'm guilty of it now too, is that, the music will start and everybody's recording.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's like, you're there, it's in front of you, but you're still experiencing it through your phone.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not really being present.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of it too, just like
Everyone
everybody
is.
else in the room. And
Yeah.
I'm like, this is so bad. And I say to my kids now, like, I don't want to go to these shows unless we can get right up to the front. I don't want to sit in the 300 level up here.
Yep.
I want to go where you can taste what's going on. We're
Yep.
so close.
Yeah.
And leave your phone in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's crazy. Like, I think back to the first trips that I would do. We didn't have cell phones, and didn't have a communication device. And so when I used to get dropped off, and this is old school tips and tricks, but when I used to get dropped off with an airplane, I would tell the pilot, I would force them, take out your journal, because all these pilots carry a journal.
Write this
and
out.
I would tell them, write my name down, write down the GPS coordinates of where I am, write down the day you drop me off, and write down the day you're going to pick me up. Because if you crash and die on the way out of here, I want the state troopers that come to recover your body and your fuselage to see in your little notebook, oh, hey, there's 6 guys out there. Here's one, Donnie Vincent. He's here at these locations. Like, that's what we used to do. And then I remember one time I took a sat phone with me, and the pilot was super pissed off. I won't say his name, but I think he's out of the business now. But he's like, is that a sat phone? And I said, yeah. And he's like, don't call me. I don't want to hear from you. Don't call me. Don't call me and tell me you're not seeing any game. I said, this is for emergencies only. If I'm not seeing Caribou, I will hike to Caribou, or I will hike as far as I can to see if I can find Caribou. I said, I'm not going to bother you. And I didn't, but yeah. And then now we have inReaches, right? And then, so all of this stuff kind of perpetuates. But yeah, getting ready for a trip is serious, and it's hard on, I don't talk about this often, but I have a little boy, and he's my entire world, and like leaving him for 20 or 30 days is freaking really, really hard. And so I'm starting to take him on more and more trips now, and I think I'm probably going to take him on his first Caribou trip this year.
Amazing.
And get him, get him in the wilderness and seeing some different things. But I've already brought him. He's 10. I brought him to Alaska probably maybe 4 times now.
Wow.
And a place that I want to hunt moose this year, I have to go up and build an airstrip in June so that I can land there in September. And I'm going to bring him up there and help me build an airstrip. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So you talked about Sick Manta. That's your production company. You guys been around since 2011. Is that right?
Yep.
And was that mainly to funnel your hunting work through, and then you started doing the side pieces for other companies?
That's exactly right. We started Sick Manta because we wanted to have a TV show. We wanted to do an outdoor channel television show, go get sponsors, 13, 22-minute episodes, We want to do the whole thing. And then when we started talking to sponsors, and, very quickly it was like, okay, we get, let's say Sitka gear. And then, Sitka is willing to contribute X. Okay, we still need this much money. So then, okay, then we have this company. And pretty soon we just sat down and we're like, man alive, we're going to be slaves to all these different companies. No matter what happens on the hunt, it's going to have to be 22-minute edit. And so we started looking at, well, what if we just came out with films? And everyone told us it was a horrible idea. I sat down with several peers or people that I believed in, and they're like, listen, the movies, it sounds like an amazing idea. There's no way you can make it work. No one's going to be interested in it whatsoever. And so they kind of talked me out of it, to be honest with you. Like, this isn't one of those stories where I was like, I took that chip on my shoulder and I forged ahead. No, I was like, okay, they're probably right. Probably can't happen. And then my team that was around me and people that believed in me more than I believed in myself were like, no, dude, we can do this. Not only can we do this, let's do one. see what the response is, and if it's good, we'll do another. And originally, we were not interested at all in doing commercial work for other companies. That was We would have companies that would call, and we would say no every time. And then
Mhm.
um, finally, the economics of it got a hold of us, and we're like, well, wait a minute, what if we do film this commercial for this company over here, and it costs X amount of dollars? Well, that we get that money in our bank account, and now that makes everything, and we're not sponsored by them, we're not a slave to them. Like, this is, and it's silly to admit this now. People probably sit back and watch this and be like, oh my gosh, you're an idiot. But in the beginning, we wanted to just focus on what it is that we wanted to focus on. And when we saw other people in the space, that's all they focused on, was what their TV show was, and getting sponsors, and kind of doing that stuff. And but for us, it was, when we started filming for other companies, it sounds mundane, or it sounded mundane to us. But when we started taking our talents and getting to know a company and putting a piece together for them to tell their story and to help their cash register ring,
Mhm.
it was very rewarding. Both, financially, it was great, but it was very rewarding intrinsically. It was really fun to put a commercial together for a company, and to have the CEO or president call us and say, we've been in business for 50 years, this is the best commercial we've ever had. Like, you
Mhm.
guys really caught the essence of what it is to shop at whatever. And so it started being really a really good side business, if you will. And now it's as much or more of our business as it is us creating films. But
Yeah, and it's nice where you can kind of put the 2 together, like, when you were doing, Winds of Adak, and you had the 3 Benelli,
yep,
um, and it was so tastefully done because you're not standing there saying, "This is the new Benelli, blah, blah, blah," right?
yep,
It's right there, you can see it, we can see you loading it, you shoot it, you get like, it's all there.
yep.
You're still accomplishing the exposure for them, but it doesn't feel like it's an ad, right?
Even more so, right? Like, maybe even accomplishing more for those guys. And
More, yeah.
that was all due to Lee Chose, who's a dear friend of mine. Do you know who Lee is?
I've heard the name, but
Yep.
yeah.
His last name is spelled Kjos. Chose Outdoors. He's probably the best photographer in the space, in the outdoor space. He's a remarkable human being, and even more than his photography, he's just a really soulful guy. But he does a lot of Benelli's work, and he's been with Benelli for a very long time. He's a freelancer, but he does a lot of Benelli's work. And they said, "Hey, we're coming out with these 3 guns. How should we do it?" And that was 100% his doing. He's like, you gotta call Donnie Vincent, and come up with this. And so Lee helped us kind of figure it out and orchestrate that deal. And he's the one that picked ADAC, and he's like, we can hunt caribou there, sea ducks, and ptarmigan.
Mhm.
And Benelli just said, we developed the deal structure, and then Benelli just said, go do you, and
Perfect.
that's all we want. No,
Yeah.
no,
No
no
strings.
restrictions at all. Go do
Yeah,
you. Yep.
yeah,
So
and
it was cool.
that was one of the wildest, trips on the water I think I've ever seen. I can I can
Dude, that
only
was.
imagine what it was like for you being in the being in
I,
the boat,
I
but
wish we could have filmed it. I wish we could have filmed the stuff we went through. Um, I wonder what it would look like. It was walls of water, like,
terrifying. Yeah,
terrifying black walls of water, as high as you want to crane your neck up and look. Is It was intense.
yeah, kind of like the type of, environment where you are reminded that you are not in control of what's going on right now, and
Yeah,
literally you go overboard, they're probably just marking where you fell out of the boat at that point. Because
that's correct. Yep. We
yeah.
in fact, I stayed outside of the cabin when we went through the water. And the captain of the ship, Corey Hennerdine, he's a dear friend of mine, and he kept screaming at me. He's like, "You got to come in here." Because he's like, we're gonna roll. We're probably gonna roll tonight a couple of times, and he's like, if we roll, you're going to let go. And he's like, or if you get swept off the deck, he's like, I can't turn around and get you. Like,
Mhm.
this is it. You are 1,000% dead. So he's like, please come inside. But I didn't want to be inside. I wanted to be outside. And so I just was outside, and he has a big metal piping on his boat. and I just held onto that metal piping, and waves were just crashing over on top of me, and like it was an intense night. It was there was a significant chance of total loss of life that night.
Mhm.
Hmm. Yep.
Do you find it hard sitting on, because I know, like, some of your stuff, like, with, the other side being a number of years worth of work put
Hmm.
together. Is there pressure from either from your team or from outside sources wanting you to get things out now as opposed to waiting?
Yes. There's pressure from audience. I get a lot of
Oh, yeah, well, we
messages.
always we always
Yeah,
want more.
I get a lot of messages. We always chuckle in a. It's frustrating, but we always chuckle with it because if we come out with a film, like we're about to come out with a new film,
Mhm.
um, it's
That's awesome.
90% done. I'd say 95% done. Um, when we come out with a new film, that either that day or the next day, somebody will tell us a message and say,
When
"Absolutely loved it. When's the next one?"
when's the next one?
Hmm.
That's right. Give
Like
me
literally
more.
that day. Yeah.
Is
And
it
so
long
we've
form? Sorry, long
lo-
form?
this is long form. Yeah,
Okay,
this will be somewhere in the 30 to 40-minute range.
okay.
So, um, but we would get some pressure from companies that we worked with, some gentle pressure.
Mhm,
Actually, from one company that we worked with, or a couple, we'd get some gentle pressure. But most of it's from the audience and from us feeling it ourselves. But uh, it's just whatever, time is what it is, and we weren't putting emphasis on creating work and letting it out and building
mhm.
our YouTube channel and all that stuff. We just weren't. And we are now. We're, as you probably have noticed, our production schedule has ramped up here, and this film that we're working on right now was actually we planned on coming out with it in October, November, October, but it's just taking a little bit longer. We like some commercial trips popped up, you get sick for a week, he gets pushed, you get, this happens, that happens, whatever it is. But we're very, very near completion of it now, and we're already working on the next one. Like we're already starting to edit the one after this right now. So,
Wow, that's amazing. And
yep,
then you came out with, DV Unfiltered, which are, like, shorter, kind of like shorts that, you're putting out on YouTube, which are amazing.
yep.
It was perfectly timed when your Illinois whitetail buck one came out. My wife had just won a teepee tent
Oh,
from some, fundraiser she went to, and I said, "Oh, what are you gonna do with that?" She goes, "I don't know." I'm like, "I gotta take it. I gotta add it to the arsenal that I have in my office." So then I was trying to look at, um, stoves, and I was going back and forth between Winterwell and, um, Pomali, and
sure.
back and forth, and then yours came out, and I looked at it, I'm like, "That's the Winterwell fast fold
Yeah.
titanium stove, I think." So I
Mhm.
sent you a message, I'm like, "Is that the da 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 da?" And you're like, "Yep, that's it." I'm like, "Okay." That was the one I was leaning towards anyway, which looks awesome. I have to do the first burn in with it before I take it out, but
Yeah.
it's, yeah, that was awesome. I wanted that to keep going, that piece. It was so well done, as all of your stuff is, but it's nice to see
Thank
that, and then even with the fantastic places that you're putting out, those are stuff that you've got in the bank that didn't end up becoming a full-length feature, is that right?
Yep. Yep. And some of them are full length features. We just haven't edited them together. And so, for instance, we have the Rivers Divide, obviously, with Steve.
Mhm.
So we have another full, believe it or not, the exact same story played on the exact same ranch, and we have that all filmed, but we haven't edited it together.
Mhm.
But I hunted a whitetail out there. Um, I shot him when he was 6.5, and it was 25 or 28 below zero, I forget, but it was freezing, freezing cold, and he was 30 some yards away. He was pushing a doe. I came to full draw and felt great about my shot, and I just shot him through the brisket, just right underneath his heart, and so I hunted that deer for 3 more falls, and then I ended up killing him exactly where I killed Steve. In fact,
Okay.
where I killed him, if you
Wow.
take the image of me killing him and the image of me killing Steve, they're about nose to nose when I shoot them.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
which is
wild.
crazy. So we have to edit all that stuff together. But now we're starting to actually create. We're starting to edit the machine together. So
Oh, great. That's
things are
awesome.
moving. Yeah, things are moving. And
I
even now
know.
we're starting to also, like this moose hunt we did last year, I was unsuccessful, but we're starting to edit even some of that stuff together. Like, even though that's going to be a full film in the future, we'll edit some of that stuff together and come out with a DV unfiltered of just kind of what we experienced on that moose hunt last year, even not getting a moose, because we realize people really love to see that stuff, even,
Mhm.
regardless.
All of it. We want all of
Yeah.
it. Whatever it looks like. Um, so in terms of your gear, I'm sure you go through stuff all the time. You're testing things out for different companies and things like that. What's your current compound setup?
I don't really have one. Honestly, I haven't shot a compound in years.
Okay.
But I have,
You going traditional now?
yeah, I've been shooting trad bow now for multiple years now. I'm shooting a Black Widow
Oh,
recurve right now that Joel Turner gifted me when I was at his house last spring or whatever. But I have a couple
beautiful.
of PC carbons here, Mach 34s. I have a couple of those here. Um, but I haven't had a compound set up for a couple of years, but I'm going to set up a couple this year just to have them. And I enjoy shooting pistols and rifles and bows, and so I just want to have some set up here so I can actually shoot, um and then get my son shooting compound and getting him. We're always at the Turner's house and shooting with Bodie and Joel, and so
Yep.
um, I just, he's been plunking in arrows, but I want to get him an official setup now and have him start shooting attention to release. And
Nice. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. What do you shoot for a compound?
I've got the new Prime form.
Mm,
Their carbon aluminum
yeah,
mixture. Yeah,
yeah.
it's been incredible. Like I started with a Hoyt and then went to Prime and then got an Elite and then went back to Prime. So
Hmm.
they're just like rock solid. Like you pull that thing back and it just points right. Like it doesn't move. It's
Yep,
amazing. It's
they're a great company.
like holding a hammer upside down, right? It's just
Hmm. Yep, great
and then
company.
I find with releases like started out with the wrist strap like everybody else and kind of graduated to a thumb button and then tried another thumb button from another company and then I was up at I do like an art kind of like an archery cottage weekend with some friends and one of them had the ultra view hinge too
Yep,
and I said hey let me try that and fell in love with it. I had to go
yep,
home and buy one. It was like it's what I like about it the most is that you don't have to pull it back like you do a normal hinge. Like normally you're using one or two fingers because if you use the third finger, you'll end up punching yourself in the face.
yep.
Where this actually the mechanism doesn't hinge until you know when you're farther back. So you can actually pull with the same as you would like with a thumb button, and then it's not until you start to rock it that it'll go off.
Sure.
So it's just one thing after the other. I'm such a sucker for stuff.
Yeah.
You know.
Have you shot Joel's new release?
Yes, I have that too.
Oh,
Yeah,
you do?
the
Yeah.
Onyx clicker. Yep,
Yep.
yeah. It's yeah. I told him I was just like that's my favorite thumb button right now,
Yeah.
and it's fantastic. Yeah, he's awesome,
He's an
awesome
awesome
guy,
human being.
awesome
Absolute
guy.
one of my very best friends.
Yeah, Bodie's gonna come on here in the new year, so
Oh, good.
just trying to nail him down with his schedule too. It's
Yeah.
he's a busy boy.
Yeah. When I probably 2 or 3 times a year I go to their house and I'll stay there for a week or whatever, and just shoot with Joel, and like I consider them my second family. And
Mhm.
when I hear them, I mean, there isn't 10 minutes that goes by in that house where they aren't talking about, hey, Bodie, did you register for this
Mm.
tournament? And then this tournament's coming up. And then how are we going from here to this tournament to this? I mean, it is nonstop. And I just sit there. They giggle with me because I'm like, how do you guys keep it's a whole nother language, the tournament archery, and just understanding what they're doing and what the shoot is that they're going to and what the opportunities are there. And they all handle it so well in stride. And Bodie shoots. There's no black magic to his system.
Right.
And you got Joel as a dad, and Joel is just like there's only one way for those two to function, and it's in the successful manner. That's just the way it is. And that's why Joel's been my archery coach for since the day I met him. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's
incredible
amazing.
family.
It's amazing to watch. I remember watching the, Lancaster Classic, and I was sitting on my couch, and he was just like Hero was going through the same hole. It's just like 11, 11, 11, 11,
Yeah.
11. I remember texting my group chat of, archery friends. I'm like, "Are you guys watching this right now?
Mhm.
Like, this is I can't believe what I'm like, oh my god." I don't know how he deals with that, the pressure of that, or even, like, as a young kid walking into a place like that and your
Mhm.
face is up on, like,
Mhm.
the rafters hanging down from advertisements and everything.
Mhm.
It's gotta play with you, but,
And he's just
rock solid.
cool, rock solid, cool as a cucumber. And we talk about a lot of the stuff behind the scenes, and I won't divulge what we talk about, but it
Sure.
just cool as a cucumber. And like, I was at his house one time, and I won't name the company, but a company was there trying to get him signed
Mm,
while we were there, and so they were there all with all their new bows that were and setting them up for him and all this stuff. And he picked this bow up. It's the first time he'd ever shot it, and he was shooting. I think it was 90 meters, and I mean, it's the first time he shot the bow outside of being sighted in, and he put every arrow within like a 50-cent piece at 90 yards with this bow that he'd never really shot.
just want to take a quick break to talk to you about a couple of things that I've been using that I think might benefit you. One is this Numa Outdoors gear. This is in their Kaza OV pattern, which is great whitetail pattern when you're up in a tree in the fall and late season. They also have a Kaza pattern which has more green in it, which is good for spring through to the fall. Numa has given me a code to give to you of Caribou Media 20, which will save you 20% at checkout. Another product here that I've been using for years now is the Bulldog targets. This is a Canadian made target. They're made in Manitoba. They have a lifetime warranty. I've used that warranty twice now on a couple of my larger targets that are outside. It's very simple, very easy. These targets are 2-finger removal every single time, which is incredible. Field point only target. Bulldog's been gracious enough to give me a 20% discount code to give to you at checkout. Use code BD20-Caribou-Media. That'll save you 20% on these awesome targets. Now back to the show.
And I can't even tell you how many times the three of us will be out in the yard shooting, waiting for dinner or whatever. Sarah's in cooking, and we'll be doing his little 3D course. It's literally just Joel, me, my son, and Bodie, or just Joel, Bodie, and me. And
Mm.
um, and we're walking around, and then Joel will say, "Bodie, shoot the black bear." And Bodie's like, he's like, "Dad, I only have a pin to 90 right now, and the thing is like 140." He's like, "Well, figure it out, And he'll range the bear, and then he's like sitting here, and he'll come to full draw, and he'll freaking smoke the thing. Like, just it he's ultra talented, ultra
Yeah,
talented. But that's
yeah,
all they do. All they do is shoot bows at their house, hunt and shoot bows for hours every day.
yeah.
Yep,
Practice, practice, practice.
yep.
It's that mental, that staying in the game. It's kind of like with what you're doing, going out on these epic trips. Like, how do you stay focused on the task and not get sidetracked or get to the point where you're like, you know what, maybe this is enough? Like, how do you keep yourself from falling into that rut? Like there's times where I'm up in the tree stand and be like, I haven't seen anything. This is probably the 40th time I've sat here. I could be building my daughter's new dresser.
Yeah,
Maybe I should go down and do that.
yeah,
Right. And you have to fight yourself to kind of, no, any minute now, something could walk out and change your
yeah.
day. Right. So
Mhm.
how does that change for you depending on where you are?
It can. You can definitely get frustrations with weather or frustrations with, it's day 20 and you're on a moose hunt and you haven't seen a moose, or, whatever it is, or you haven't seen the right moose. And there can be frustrations, but you just keep, you have to understand that this day that you have it's not a given. And these opportunities that you have to be in this wilderness, that's not a given. You
Mhm.
put yourself in this place for a reason, and so just be there. Try not to let the success or failures fall down to what the tag is. And you just have to be, it's way easier said than done, but you just have to have a presence about you and understand that you're enjoying um, your deer season, you're enjoying your day, you're enjoying your time in the wilderness. Now if you have to go home for a day and build your daughter's dresser and get that checklist off your mind and then get back to the woods to settle your mind down, I totally understand that. And there's times that I have gone through some of that stuff, and um where you start to lose your focus, or you start to lose a little bit of your ambition because things are going so poorly, or it's raining for, we did a trip a few years ago, and to the crew's uh benefit, or to celebrate their mental fortuitousness, like, it rained something like 17 days in a row or 14 days in a row. And I mean, dark to dark rained, and we were
Wow.
camping in a teepee with no floor, and it was very, very wet. And everything was wet, and everyone was just all hands on deck, right? You put your soaking wet socks on and you're soaking wet. You just get dressed in the morning and go out and hunt all the way until the sun goes down, and look at the bears and look at the moose, and even you start to even just laugh at the rain, right? You're just like,
Yeah.
this is absolutely insane.
How is this possible?
Yeah, you're just like, tomorrow's gonna be a better day or whatever. But you just take, you just take it 1 minute at a time, and our lives are not assured.
Mhm.
Even from this moment on, it's not assured. Tomorrow's not assured, and we just have to. You just have to take your time and understand that this is a presence. Well, even when you're building your daughter's dresser, like, you gotta enjoy that, man. You gotta
Yeah.
you gotta even surround yourself. And I don't care if you have to make a cup of coffee or turn on some music or have your daughter in there and you guys are telling stories to one another. Like, that has to be as important as your deer hunt. That has to be as significant, because you only get one chance to do that, right? Every moment of our lives is once in a lifetime. And
Mhm.
the more we can wrap our heads around that and understand that, the more of a life we're going to live. It doesn't take the grand adventures. They're amazing. And I
Mhm.
want to go on them as much as possible. And you understand now, when you went elk hunting in British Columbia, you understand that you get to see some really amazing things in that country, and experience that. But you also get to have, you're born into a country that is, you're born in North America, I'll say. So I always tease my Canadian friends that they live in the northern part of America. But like, you live in North America, like, you basically, as people say, you won a lottery ticket of where you were born, and
Oh,
where you're
absolutely.
growing up, and the things you get to experience, and even the things that you see in your job, right? You get to see the degradation of society, and true hell holes. And so we just have to thank our lucky stars, the things we get to do. And
Mhm.
you start to understand pretty quickly that rain is no big deal, and wind is no big deal, and getting charged by a bear that doesn't kill you is really no big deal. and
Yeah.
and you start to understand that you're still very fortunate to do that stuff.
Yeah, it's I kind of developed over the years. I don't know if this is a good way to do it or not, but I always think whenever there's some sort of tragedy or some event that's happened, "Oh my god, this happened." I immediately go to the worst case scenario. Did anybody die? No. Okay, well,
Mhm,
cars can be fixed or
mhm,
whatever, you kind of I mean, yeah, well, yeah, but why aren't you upset? Like, this is horrible. This happened. This happened. Yeah, but we're fine. Like
mhm,
everybody, everybody's okay.
mhm.
Whatever we're gonna work through, whatever it is. Have you ever had to call any trips off because of safety reasons or anything like that, or any injuries? I know that I think you were saying with Terra Nova, you only had 3 days instead of the amount of time due to the weather that was coming in.
Yep, yep, yep. When we arrived, Barb Grange, she's the one who owns Tuckamore Lodge. I think it's called Tuckamore Lodge. Uh, it was a 10-day hunt, and she's like, "Look, you have 3 days." She's like,
Yeah.
"It's gonna blow 100 kilometers an hour. on the fourth day, and this I can't have you out in the wilderness. She's like, I just absolutely can't do it for whatever reason. She just didn't want us to be in danger, and so she's like, you have 3 days, and obviously it worked out. It's amazing, and it did. The storm did come, and it was holy, like
Wild.
yeah, it was significant. But I'm trying to think if any trips have been called off. I've had a couple of trips, where I've had a couple of trips where like I was going to go out west goose hunting or something like that, and then a really bad freeze happened, and the birds moved on, and so trips were canceled, things like that. But no, I can't think of one that was canceled in Alaska. We've been in earthquakes. We've been in last year before last, we had a volcanic eruption. That was my first volcanic eruption. That was pretty freaking awesome.
Wow.
I can't believe how hard the ground shook when the volcano erupted. It was bananas how much the ground shook.
Mhm.
And things like that. And we've had tough weather with waves. We've had little trips canceled here and there with how severe the swell is, and then obviously like winds of ADAC. We knew where we were going was going to be rough. Um, but the pressures of work, to be honest with you, the pressures of work is what compelled us to go out that day and to go hunt that side of the island for caribou. And it almost cost us for sure.
Yeah, it's like when you were, doing your biology stuff, and I remember hearing one story about going, um, to Nepal to study the tigers, and just your trip to get to where you had to meet yeah, your
Super
the guy
dangerous.
you were working with was like,
Yep.
"Oh my god," like,
Yep.
that would cause people to turn around and go home, you know what I mean?
Super
Like, it's
dangerous. Yep.
just wild, wild stuff. It's amazing. Do
The
you ever
amount of
miss
machine guns stuffed in your chest because they don't think your papers are legit. And I had the same thing in Russia. But in Russia, they just wanted to be bribed.
Right.
When I was in Bangladesh or Nepal, Nepal was a lot better than Bangladesh, but they don't want to be bribed. Like
Mhm.
it's it's not a great situation. Yeah, and so yeah, there's times that you're definitely like, what am I doing here? Like when you get yourself in a pickle like that, and you're just like, what am I doing here? And
Mhm.
I've told the story before, I think, but I got caught with a round, with a rifle
Oh,
cartridge in Moscow, in the airport, and that was,
uh-oh.
horrible. That was horrible, and they said they're gonna throw me in prison, and I was gonna miss my flight, and I was gonna get put on a terrorist watch list, and
Mhm.
all this stuff. And I ended up bribing my way out of that. But it was scary as hell. In when I was wrapping my head around going to a Russian prison for, they said I would have to go to prison for like 3 weeks until everything got sorted out. But I mean, once you go into the Russian prison system, then what? Like,
Yeah.
then what?
You're
And
lost in there, yeah. Who's keeping
yeah,
track of where you are?
yeah, yeah. So,
The
um,
pilot forget about the pilot not knowing
yeah,
where to pick you up. It's like,
yeah,
Johnny
yeah.
who?
It's a lot worse. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, you get things like that for sure. For sure, you get little hiccups. Yeah.
Do you think, I know the North American model of conservation is very much celebrated, and we're doing things very well. Do you think we're doing enough? Do you think anything should change?
I think a lot should change. I think we have, um, and I get torn here because if you start looking at things politically
Mhm.
and you look at the biorhythms um, of the world, you can start seeing yourself getting pulled in different directions. For some people, wilderness and wildlife and natural systems is the epitome, right? It's everything that we have to celebrate and pour ourselves into, never disrupting those systems. They are the holy grail. We have to leave them intact. And then on another school of thought is we start looking at um, precious minerals independence from foreign nations, to where we are exposing our country to being having limitations and liabilities through using foreign uh, minerals and precious metals. And so, so then they start talking about mining in North America to create stability as a country and to have some self-support as a country. And then, so you start looking at all these different, it's almost in another regard, do you catch the salmon and bring it to market, or do you not commercial fish the salmon at all and let them all go back to the natal stream and to build these, so you have these ideas of renewable resources and conservation and preservation of wildlife. And so I think I think we do a pretty good job of um, managing species through the North American model, things like the white-tailed deer and things like that. But I think there's too much political sway in with different species, like with British Columbia shutting down the grizzly bear hunting.
Oh,
That's absolutely insane. So the fact that the people of Vancouver, the main population state, the fact that they have a more so a say of what happens to grizzly bear conservation. If you would have told me when I was a kid that they were going to close down grizzly bear hunting in British Columbia, I would have laughed in your face. Like
I
British
did.
Columbia is, yeah. I
I,
mean,
I,
they
I
have
heard of.
the greatest
Sorry,
grizzly
sorry, go
bear
ahead.
hunting in North America is in
Yeah,
British
yeah.
Columbia, and it got shut down. And so when you start looking at people that live in the city, or people that want total preservation, or people that want, like, we just came out, this gentleman made us, did you see that AI wolf thing that we just put out with, when I told the story about living with the pack of wolves with Rogan, and this
Mhm.
guy made kind of an AI video with it and we put on our Instagram. Did you see that by chance?
I think so.
Okay, so anyway, from that, a bunch of people have sent me private messages like, "Oh my god, I love your work. This is amazing. I can't believe people hunt wolves. I totally align with you. We
Right.
shouldn't be hunting wolves. Wolves should be protected." They took that video as I'm anti-hunting wolves, which is the furthest thing from the truth. I
Mhm.
didn't shoot those wolves because
Right.
I was in Alaska doing research.
Mhm.
I've had been on other hunts, like when you saw Who We Are, when I got surrounded by that pack of wolves. I could have killed those wolves. I had
Mhm.
tags in my pocket, but I didn't know what was going on in that area with the wolf. I didn't know if they needed to be killed or managed or not. Now, 30 days later, when the pilot picked me up and he said, "Did you see any wolves?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I saw this pack.
Like 8.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I saw many of them, and
Yeah.
they surrounded me twice on that trip." And he's like, "Oh, did you shoot any?" And I said, "No, because I didn't know,
Mhm.
does this valley have it?" And he's like, "Oh man, we have a huge wolf problem." He's like, "It would have been awesome if you would have shot one or two of them." And I was like, "Okay, well, I didn't know. If I come back here, I will shoot one or two of them."
Right.
Areas that I hunt on the peninsula, the wolves are way out of check. Areas that I hunt in Western Alaska, the wolves are way out of check. And to where they're shooting them from airplanes, right?
Mhm.
Legally. Like they're not harassing the wolves. They're literally going out in the wintertime, shooting them from airplanes to get their numbers down. And
Mhm.
so all these people would send me these notes like, "Thank God, I see you're a hunter, but you're also," and so there's way too much passion and
Right.
politics in the management of wildlife. We need to manage wildlife for the best populations. We need to manage our soils and our waters and our air qualities for the best case scenario for what is going on, and having these renewable resources and what it looks like to have these renewable resources. If we want to put certain stipulations on them, like when we hunt grizzly bears in British Columbia, okay, if you want to say you have to take the skull, the hide, and the meat, and you have to purpose the meat. You have to do purpose. You have to repurpose the meat. You have to use the meat, whether that be whatever you eat it yourself, or you're cooking it and feeding it to your sled dog team, whatever it is, so you don't give your dogs trichinosis. Whatever it is, if that's going to be the law, great. But we need to manage these animals. We need to have better understanding of what the wild systems. We can't have somebody that lives in a high-rise apartment casting a vote because they just got done watching Nat Geo
Yep.
and they want all the bears to be happy. Walt Disney was a liar. He made Walt Disney's was not professing conservation efforts. What Walt Disney was doing was making movies to entertain us about wildlife and human interactions. He was anthropomorphizing wildlife so that we understood, and we as humans assimilated more to them. And so it's a very complex question. It's a very complex idea. But I think if we manage these systems far more for the systems themselves, and to understand that everything really starts with the soils, and then the grasses, and then the insects, and
Mhm.
then the birds, and we finally do get up to the elk and the mule deer and the grizzly bear, we will do far better to manage these systems and to keep these wild places wild. Like, I know in the United States right now, they're trying to sell off our public lands to create, wealth. But once we do that stuff, right? I'm not so against mining in certain instances because, like I said, maybe we do need to look at these foreign independence from heavy metals and precious metals, not heavy metals, but precious metals. But maybe we do need to look at some ethical and minimal mining. I don't even know what that means. I'm not a miner, but um, selling off our public lands and putting them into the private sector and generating more wealth and more use of those lands through that process, I think is going to be a really poison pill. I think one of the greatest um, liberties that we have as Americans and as Canadian citizens is our use of wild places and our freedoms
Yeah.
to use wild places. And any politician, whatever side of the aisle you sit on, you give them an inch and they take 100 miles. And so,
Yeah, like, we wrote I saw more black bears, I lost count, when we were out in BC. They were like raccoons would be
yeah,
here. Like, they were on
yeah,
people's roofs, they were eating your grass in your front lawn. They were everywhere, and then we
yeah.
get up, and they're walking around the town. Like, one of the guys that came with us, he literally lived, right turn, left turn from where we were the house that we were staying in before we
Hmm.
left. And he's like, "Okay," we were in the garage. He's like, "I'm gonna go home now." And Daniel's like, "Get the truck, we're gonna drive you home." He's like, "No, no, it's like 2-minute walk. It's okay." He's like, "Get in the truck, we're gonna drive you home." And literally next to his mailbox was a black bear that if I was out hunting one, I'd probably shoot that one. It was a
Hmm.
very good size, right? Like,
Hmm.
they're everywhere. And then you go out, and I think we saw 5 or 6 grizzlies, and one of them was walking down the trail we were walking up, and we immediately changed our
Hmm.
path. But it's been so long now that you have entire, you've got a group of bears that have never known humans as
Hmm. Hunters
anything,
as
as
pressure.
hunters, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, what has to happen for that to change or go back? Or maybe they opened it up a little bit. Like, do they have to, horrible to say, but do kids need to start getting taken?
Hmm.
Do people do more, like, there's been more and more attacks? Like, what is it that we need to see before we change things? Because
Hmm.
it's the same with mountain lions. I shared a mountain lion post of a guy who I knew had been on an 11-day hunt and finally found one and shot it. And I got some pushback about, oh my God, they're, why would you share something like, and he's holding it up like it's enormous, right? A huge cat. And then, why would you share something like that? They're endangered. And
No, they're not.
I said, first of all, they're not endangered. Second of all, the landowner needed to shoot 4.
Hmm.
So the fact that he was able to get this one was a help, and then I had to kind of explain more and more and more, which I am perfectly happy doing.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of emotion, like you said, that goes into immediately not thinking about the conservation side of it. It's more about, how could you, how dare
Yeah.
you,
Yeah. Every
when
time we post about lions, with that big lion that I killed in BC, immediately get a number of responses. Oh, they're endangered. We wouldn't be able to hunt them if they were endangered. Um, they have been pushed around. They were almost hunted to extinction in the United States when people were trying to get rid of all the predators in the early 1900s. They were almost hunted to extinction, but now they're actually expanding their territories. And obviously, we have a lot of people now, and there's a great infrastructure, so they're struggling to expand their territories. But in unbroken wilderness, they do very, very well. And it's just people don't understand the ins and outs. And it's very easy to um, cast when you see a deer or an elk or a moose killed. It's very easy to, it kind of looks like a cow, right? It looks like
Mhm.
somebody just went out and harvested their beef. But when you see a lion and a grizzly bear and things like that, people, I know not a lot of people eat grizzly bears. I've eaten grizzly bear, in which it was very, very good. But black bears are amazing to eat. Mountain lions are amazing to eat. So when you see these animals, they automatically think you're hunting something that is endangered, but you're some sort of trophy hunter. But very often with lions, I mean, there are people that hunt and kill lions out of trophy hunting, but very often there's a quota, whether by the province or by the state, or like where I killed that cat in British Columbia, the biologist actually wanted me to kill 2 cats if I could, because they had a small band of California bighorns that they've been managing, and the cats were just wreaking havoc on them. And the biologists are put in a really difficult position because the cats are taking too many sheep,
Right.
but then they also need the cats and the wolves to take a significant number of deer, because the muleys in this area can get overpopulated very, very quickly. So the biologists need the predators to be taking these deer to keep the deer in check, so the deer have really healthy populations and don't go through a crash. But they don't want the cats to be over hunting the sheep, because they'll wipe out an entire band of sheep in short order. So it's a balance, and decisions have to be changing all the time. Parameters and variables change all the time.
Hmm. Yeah, it really is a balance. Like, and we have to keep it that way.
Yeah.
How was your experience with Michael Easter? I know, yeah, I've read his book, The Comfort Crisis. Incredible. If you have, I've gifted it to a few people at this point. It's an amazing book about, just how we're kind of too comfortable in our ways, and we really need to kind of push ourselves. And I loved how he would talk about a topic, and then he literally went and experienced it, or like went with you hunting, or going to another part of the world to immerse himself in with that particular group or whatever. It wasn't just that he was researching it in a book and then writing about it. He
Yeah.
actually lived these things. So when he was with you, he was not interested in hunting, is that right? He was just following you for an article?
That's correct. Yep. He reached out to me. He was a writer for Men's Health magazine. He was writing for several different magazines, but he reached out to me in 2018 and wanted to do an article on me in Men's Health magazine. And so we ended up setting that up, and we went elk hunting in the Shell Creek Range of Nevada. I was there, I think, 21 days hunting. I think he came and hunted with me for like 3 or 4 days, something like that. But just we sat in camp and talked about hunting, and he asked me a bunch of difficult questions that I really didn't understand the answers to. I thought I did. Uh,
Hmm.
I thought I could give him really quick answers, and I thought I had it kind of all wrapped with a bow. But he was just asking me, kind of the why and the how and what it means, and I didn't even really understand it myself. But so we did the magazine article together, and he left me with a lot of topics to kind of delve into myself and to think about, and I left him with topics to delve into and think about. And so then he came, uh, talked with me about a book idea after the Men's Health article, and he's like, I really would like to dive more into the discoveries that I made in writing this magazine article, and would you be up for being part of the project and kind of um, a co-project on this book? And I said, absolutely. And so I lined up. Um, we were in Alaska for a very long time. Like, I was there. I ended up being in Alaska for 10 and a half weeks straight, hunting. And he came for a large portion of that when we were hunting caribou up in the Arctic. And he didn't reference it in the book, but I also took him sheep hunting for like 10 days in the snowy, icy mountains of the Chugach Mountains. And it was amazing for him to see and experience. But he's an amazing man. He's an incredible writer. He taught me as much about hunting as I taught him, because he would ask me almost like yes and no questions at some point as well, where he'd say, okay, so you've killed an elk, now what? And I go, well, I have to butcher it. And he's like, tell me what that's like. So I tell him what it's like to cut up an elk, and he's like, where's your mind? What are you thinking when you're cutting up an elk? I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
it's amazing. Like, you're skinning. I said, you are on a high when you're sitting there skinning this elk, and you feel the weight of the hind quarter, and you're putting it in a game bag, and then you're putting it in your backpack, and you're hiking out of the mountains. I said, there's no more accomplished or uh, providing, manly, being, a contributor to your family, to your neighborhood, to your society. So there's no greater feeling other than maybe fighting a war, of which I've not done.
Mm.
um, but then he would take my words and our engagements and our interactions, and he would go do his research, and then he came back to me and he said, man, I learned all about why you feel that way when you're leaving the mountains with a heavy backpack. And he'd educate me on the things that he had learned by interviewing, professors at Harvard or Stanford or wherever the places that he went, talking to sports athletes and all these different people, that he educated himself on what our bodies, how our bodies are physically responding, how our minds are responding. And so it was a fantastic, it was an awesome project. He wrote a beautiful book, and I'd love to work with Michael again on another project. We talk often. He's an incredible man.
Hmm. Yeah, he's fantastic, and he's got a couple more that he's come out, or one of them is coming out this year or next year, about rucking and
Yep.
carrying weight. And then the other one he had that he came out with, I think was it last year or this
Yeah.
year? Scarcity
Scarcity
Brain.
brain. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Which
another great one.
Yeah, which is interesting about that too, because I was writing to him in reading Scarcity Brain. I started understanding that maybe even hunting falls in that slot machine realm, right? Of being, having that reward of when you see all the lights and hear all the music and you kind of win a little bit of your money back. It's all giving you all these little steps to keep in there and keep gambling. And hunting's kind of the same thing, right? Like, you're sitting in your tree stand or you're hiking up the mountain and you're waiting for that engagement with that caribou or that moose or that whitetail, and like, you go 5 days in a row or 10 days in a row, you don't have that engagement,
Hmm.
and your brain is just planing out, and you're going through what is maybe this healthy boredom that Michael talks about, and then all of a sudden you see the moose of your dreams and you kill it and you get that spike, and that's kind of something that keeps you coming back for more. And then when you get to cook it later on and have a beautiful meal, and yeah, it's incredible.
I think I think a lot of us look at hunting kind of the same way we look at our careers, which I also think a lot of people don't do correctly. Um, we want that end goal. We want to shoot that animal. We want to whatever. We want the meat. We want this. We want that. Same thing. We want to do. We want to work until we retire, and then we're going to enjoy all our money, and it's going to be great.
Nope.
When the whole time you're supposed to be enjoying the song and dance along the way, because
Yep.
when you get to that end and you are retired, I have had countless people that I have personally worked with. 9 months later, they drop dead of something,
Yep.
or they can never use that money that they saved up, or they're so old and beaten up with their bodies that they can't experience it when they should have been experiencing it along the way. And it's the same thing with, even when I go to BC and I don't come home with an elk, but I remember sitting in the so we weren't staying in the lodge where everybody was. We were going out and staying in a tent, but
Yep.
we came back there for like one warm meal before we started driving back. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, how am I going to end this story I'm trying to tell? And I remember turning and looking on the wall, and there's this enormous Euro mounted elk on the wall. I remember looking and I'm thinking, that's what I'm that's what I was striving to get the whole way through. But there were so many things that happened along the way
Mm.
that have changed me, that I got to experience with my kid. And that's the stuff that you need to pick up on, because if you're only focusing on that end mission and, oh, it didn't work out, I didn't get anything, or like you said with talking about your doe to that guy and he thought it was a failure,
Mhm.
we just need to turn the mind around with a lot of people. And I think, like, do you think we're headed in the wrong direction? Like, with hunting, do you think where would you like to see, if you could be in control, where would you like to see it go from where it is right now?
Yeah, and I'm going to be a little bit of a hypocrite about this, but I think if we could get away from the shortcuts and the technologies
Mm.
I think we would be developing a much more dedicated and involved hunter, getting away from the trail cameras, getting away from the cell cameras, certainly. Even if we had to, like the reason I say I'm speaking with hypocrisy is because, you're shooting this new prime bow, which I have zero problem with. I have a carbon PSE Mach 34 hanging here. I hunted this year with a amazing Q, the fix, folding stock, adjustable, this ecosystem of this amazing rifle,
Hmm.
that is, looks flashy, but is far less flashy and far more like a hammer and nail than people realize. Right? It's just a very adjustable, ideal tool for taking a rifle to the backcountry. But getting away from those technologies, I think would, um, greatly enhance us as hunters, and and even backing off of the social media stuff, and but I think anytime we're taking technology and cutting a corner, um, whether it be heating ourselves with it, using it to find game, using it to anything that takes away from woodsmanship, or laying boot leather on the ground, or having to cut wood for chores, or walk a little bit further to get in. I think stepping back away from that stuff is going to, um, really sift out who are actual hunters, and that it's going to increase tenfold what they're going to learn about the natural world and about
Hmm.
the natural biorhythms. And the more they understand it, the more they care and understand about these ecosystems, from the soil to the 180-inch whitetail, not just the 180-inch whitetail. The more they understand about those ecosystems, the more they're going to care and be a voice for them into the future. And so, the more, but we're not going to go backwards. I think we probably know that. I think some people will, but the more we
Right.
trend down this technological path and shortcutting things and crossbows and bait piles and ground blinds and
Hmm.
cell cams, um, the woods are going to lose their value.
We're not
Um,
learning anything. Yeah.
that's right. We're not learning anything, and you're not involved at all. You're just waiting for some app to tell you some wind direction, and then you go out to your, deer feed that's 20 feet in front of your, and you've got a, somebody just sent me a picture. I won't say the name again, but somebody just sent me a picture of a crossbow, hanging in a department store. It was $4,000 or something like that.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's hold on. That now I feel like I'm full of crap.
No, I believe it. Everything's getting more and more expensive. You
Yeah,
know.
but that's the thing, is like, and when we go, here it is. Yeah, $4,000 for this crossbow, $3,999. Um, and so, yeah, I just think, people don't realize it, right? Because what happens is you want to see the big whitetail. You want to
Hmm.
experience that hunt. You want to see this animal. And so you put the cell cameras out because you want to know, like, when are the deer moving? When are they coming through here? I want to increase my opportunities here.
Right.
But you don't know that you're shortcutting your own experience. You don't know that with your crown land that surrounds your family cottage,
Hmm.
like, you having to physically go out and being like, okay, I found a scrape here. I found a scrape here. I found a scrape here. Um, you going out and actually finding that stuff with your son or daughter or whatever, and then you set up a tree stand, and then here comes that big old pot-bellied donkey, and you arrow him. And let's say it takes you 10 years to do that. Like, that deer is going to mean so much to you, and that whole involvement of looking through all that land. Now,
Yep.
if you go out there with 60 cell cams and just literally place them everywhere, and then you're just sitting back and waiting for the data, and then, and then a lot of times, like, I hunt with a group of guys that use cell cams heavily, and I hunt spots. That's what I do. I find spots, and then I hunt those spots. I don't know who's coming through there. I do use, trail cameras, but the trail cameras that I use are not cell cameras. And then I just pick them. I put them out, and then I pick them up at the end of the year, and I learn about this year for
Right.
next year. Like, I
Right.
look at this little pinch point, and I go, I have no idea what happened during this little pinch point, but I put a camera there October 15th, and now I'm going to have all this data, and so I'm going to know kind of how things were, happening there if I didn't sit there. And so, um, but I just think that if we take a step back and we're always hunting this I like I'll go to a bottleneck, or I'll go to a river crossing, or I'll go to um, a travel corridor, and I'll see the animals that I'm going to see, and I'll have amazing hunts doing these things. But I'll have friends that have cell cams on food plots and all this different stuff, and they're always hunting. Oh man, he showed up yesterday. They're always hunting that yesterday's picture,
Right.
and I can't tell you. I mean, these. I have a couple of buddies that have amazing farms, huge farms. Food plots are perfect. Everything is dialed, and they sit there and just bounce around this farm chasing these pictures, and rarely does it work out for them. And
Mhm.
are they having a good time doing it? Yes. Are they learning woodsmanship along the way? Absolutely not.
No. Yeah. I put a camera out this year in a spot up on the Crown land, and I came back and I checked it, and it's definitely not an area that is well used, but there was a massive black bear on it.
Oh,
And I posted a picture of it and was talking to friends about it. They're like, "Oh, you gonna sit for him?" I said, "I probably will, but he's not coming back." Like that was he was there a month and a half ago. Like he never
hmm
came back, right?
hmm
But it's
but
nice
you
to
can
have
learn
that.
that stuff, though, right? You
Right.
can learn that stuff because he might be there next year within
That's
two
right.
or 3 days of that time.
Yeah. Where did he go? That's what I'm
Yes.
thinking now, right? So I
hmm
gotta branch out and yeah, it's
So what made you put that camera right there?
um I had I had a few run-ins with a couple of bears in that spot. One was with a sow and a cub, um, which quickly I was bringing bait with me, and then I quickly decided I'll do that later
Mhm.
because I remember the cub scampered across the little road, and then she poked her head out, and I was like, okay, and then I kind of sliced the pie a little bit out to the side to get a better look at her, and she had already taken up 20 or 30 feet towards me. Like she was very interested in
They're
what
curious.
what I was doing and what my business was, right?
Mhm.
So I've seen a few bears there. I ran into a moose there. Like I know that there's animals there. It's just pinpointing exactly where I need to be and the timing. And obviously, the more and more sign you find, the better. So it's just
Yeah.
and it's great. What I've found is that moose season, when it hits and all the rifle hunters come up there, it is a zoo. And I get out of there. But it seems to be that from every other time from October to the end of December, I feel like I'm the only guy out there, which is
Mhm.
amazing, which is
Mhm.
awesome. I love it that way. Hopefully it stays that way, but um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's a fantastic chess game that we keep coming back to time and time again, right?
Mhm. Yep.
You
Yep,
can't.
absolutely.
Mhm.
And I hope
So
people continue to, I know a few people that hunt, they hunt really beautifully. They hunt really well and good, as I like to say, and they really understand. Like a couple of the guys that work for us, like William Altman, who is part of Sick Manta and he lives in Maine. He is constantly scouring Maine and looking for sign, and he's constantly hunting. He's a very successful hunter in Maine, and Forrest Rowe, who lives in Ohio, he's one of our photographers. He's hunting with a recurve, and he's hunting little woodlots, and he just these just understanding bird species and tree species, and they're just enveloped in the things that they're seeing and experiencing, and
mhm.
it's really a valuable way to hunt. If nobody's hunted that way, I really challenge you to either away from the trail cameras, or um, don't use cell cameras or whatever. Get out in the woods, start doing your scouting, find your sign, go to areas that you've never hunted before, and go find sign and do a hang and hunt, and shoot a doe, or just go do a hang and hunt and just stay off your phone and just see the things that you see, and I think you'll find a lot of value in doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I started reading Sand County Almanac, and I think it should be a prerequisite
I totally agree.
before people get their hunting license. I tend to leave it in my bag, and I'll only read it when I'm out in a tree
hmm
stand or whatever. It feels like I'm, just the way that everything connects together. It's so important that people get in tune with that and focus on that as opposed to, like we said before, the just the finished
And think of
outcome.
the things that he was writing about. So he was exemplifying roads. He was
Mhm.
exemplifying as far as like in the mechanized world intruding into hunting in the wild world. He was, Aldo was calling out signs that would say, bass fishing lodge here. He was calling out magazines that had articles and ads that would bring people to certain, because he's like all of these things, whether it be uh, a road or certain docks on lakes or whatever it is, any of this infrastructure that was coming, sleeping into the wilderness, as he would say, was just pushing the true wilderness that much further away. And people were just finding a way to access that territory and to, I don't want to say this, but because we do these things, right? We go to a lodge and fish for salmon. We go to a lodge and hunt for moose, or we go to a certain area and camp and hunt for moose. And we use airplanes or boats or whatever it is. And so, but he was just calling out, like, to recognize, the more of this stuff that you use to get into to these areas, like, it's potential that the area is going to be impacted from that this day forward, and then you're going to have to go even further. And so he just had a very good understanding of the value of wildlife and who valued wildlife and why. And he's just very, very eloquent writer. I think anyone that buys a hunting license, I think anyone that shoots a rifle or a bow on a hunt should have to take and pass Joel's shot IQ.
Yeah,
And I
that
think
too.
anyone that buys a hunting license should have to read the Sand County Almanac.
Yeah, I fully agree.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate you carving out this time with me today. Are you able to quickly, I know we've talked about a lot, can you tell us a story, a hunting story, before we sign off here?
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's a good question.
So,
I
I know there are a lot, and they're all meaningful in their own way, but
So I'll tell you this one. It's a longer story, but I'll make it quick. I was hunting moose in Alaska this last year, and I was in a particular area, and there's just myself and Forrest Rowe was the photographer, and we're camping and hunting. Uh, we'd been there for, I don't know, 10 or 15 days. Then we moved to a new location because the first spot that we went to, the season ended, and so we had to go to a second location to extend our season, because one zone was a 15-day moose hunt, the other zone I think was a 20-day moose hunt or something like that, or it's 10 and 20. But we go to the second location, and I see this bull moose uh, very far away, and I see him come over the hill, and he looks like he has small antlers, big body, small antlers, young bull, and he's kind of standing out in the open. But before I can really assess him, he beds down in the alder trees, and so I'm looking at him. I can see him in the alders, and I can see he has really a lot of points, but I can't really break down what he is. And so Forrest starts looking at him through the spotting scope, and he's like, "Donnie, I think he's a giant." I go, "I don't think he's a giant, Forrest. I saw him come over. He looked like he had small paddles. I only saw him for a second, but he looked like a young bull." And so then I started looking at him, and I go, "I see what you're seeing. Like, when he turns his head, he's got a lot of points and everything." So it is now, Forrest is like, "Should we go?" And then, I'm asking Forrest, "Should we go?" And we're sitting there. So finally we decided, I think it was like 6:45 at night, that we're gonna go. He's 3.5 miles away. And so the sun is going to set in the 8 o'clock hour. Um, we get all of our gear together, we drop off the hill, we go across this bog laden spruce, thick, nasty forest, we get up the other side. We think this is gonna be, the land starts to stack when you look at it
Mm.
through a spotting scope, and you look at it as a person. You're like, okay, we go up this hill, we go over this ridge, we cross that valley, and then we're right there. He's going to be right there. But when you get over there, you start to realize that there's all these canyons and there's all these different false tops and everything that you have to go through to get there. So we are really, really going fast because we have to get to this bull before dark. And not only are we looking at this bull, not only do we have to decipher the age of this bull to see if he's legal and that we're going to kill him, but we have to find an airstrip. And neither one of us are pilots, but we have to find an airstrip near where he is so that we don't have to carry him 3.5 miles back to this airstrip. So we have to, not only are we hunting this bull, we have to identify an airstrip that we think the airplanes can land on in between here and there that's only maybe a mile from the bull.
Mm.
We go after this bull, and I made some mistakes going after this bull. Um, Coming up, um, I picked a spot of which I was where I was going to drop my backpack on the way in there. And so, as we're moving up this mountain, I end up dropping my backpack because I'm like, I just have to get to this ridge. From this ridge, he'll be like 300 yards, and we'll snake a little bit closer. And so I drop indiscriminately. I drop my backpack, which has all of my rain gear, my down, my food, my water, my in reach, basically everything. Drop it, and I get up to the ridge, and now I realize when I get to that ridge, there's an entire canyon between us.
Oh.
So we now have to cross through this whole canyon, and we get to the other side of this canyon, and there's a huge sow with a huge sow grizzly, like an 8.5, 9 foot sow grizzly with two 3-year-old cubs, 2-year-old cubs. So we're avoiding her. We don't want to disturb her. And then we get into the position of where we think this moose is going to be, and where we think it's going to be within rifle range. And when we get there, the moose is still over a mile away. So there's an additional, essentially, piece of real estate that we had to cross to get up to where this bull was. He's bedded at the top of the mountain. We're in the middle of the mountain. So I end up going around these two big bull areas in this valley. We get up. I see the moose. He's still there. I sneak all the way up. We crawl away, and we get to 80 yards. He's bedded in the alders, sleeping. He picks his head up, turns and looks at me, and he's not a legal bull. So we
Oh.
just sit there and film him. We look at him, but we've now just hustled, all these miles, whatever. We turn around. We literally watch the sun set. We can see the sun going behind the mountains. It's absolutely stunning. And this moose, I stand him up. I'm cow calling to him because we just want to film him. He stands up. He's stunning, but he's a young bull. And he turns and he walks down a valley. So now we have to get back to our backpacks. But it's going to be pitch black by the time
Mhm.
we get back there. Not only did I not mark where they were, I
Oh.
left my in reach and everything with our packs.
Right.
So um, we start making our way down the mountain. We pick up all our gear. We start making our way. And so things just take longer than you realize. And you cross this mountain, you go through the first bowl, go through the second bowl, you cross the next ravine, but now it's pitch black. So now you're kind of dropping your head down to look at the mountains in the blackness. You're trying to look at the shape of the hills, and you're like, okay, this was the shape of how we came. We need to go across the face of this, and we need to drop down. And so then you get down to this big tundra flat. That's where our backpacks are, but we actually don't know where they are. And so, you know, you start to understand your mistakes, and you start to realize in the haste of trying to get to the bowl, and in the haste of having this false understanding that if we drop our packs here and we go to the top of this ridge, we're going to shoot him right here. And when he drops down dead, we're going to be able to turn around, come back, get our packs, go to him, butcher him, carry him to our airstrip. But now it's the dead of night. It's pitch black, and I'm looking back at this hill, and nothing looks like it did in the daylight. And you're starting to just kind of look at the shadows and the undulations of how the hill is. But I saw this one little sharp little bench, and I was like, I know I was heading to that when I dropped my pack. So like, I'm gonna start walking this way in this area and start looking. And so I was able to basically I was just doing like little circles in this area, and I was able to find our backpacks, which was like,
Ooh. Oh.
thank my lucky stars, because those little shortcuts, those little indecisions, poor decisions can lead to costing you your life
Mhm.
in a flash. Like it doesn't feel like it at the moment because you're like, I kind of know where camp is, and we can do jumping jacks. But like if it starts to pour rain, or if it starts to snow, or the weather changes that you didn't realize it was coming, it could very easily cost you your life.
Mhm.
Find a backpack, down a bunch of food, put warm clothes on. Um, there's a mini celebration. Drink as much water as you possibly can,
Yeah.
and then we start walking back to camp, and we're dropping down. And all we have to do now is cross that thick spruce forest, and back up the next mountain. We're camping on the top of the next mountain
Where the bears are.
where the bears are. We drop into the spruce, and we're going through there, and very, uh, very lucky for us, or I'd like to think I would have done it anyway, but I probably would have been in some amount of time. But Forrest stops me and he goes, "Hey, um, you feel like we're going the right way?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "We had to. The ridge is behind us. We had to cross the spruce, and we had to go up the next mountain."
Mhm.
But of course, when you're in the spruce, you've been through a spruce forest. It's so thick, and there's
Yep.
blowdowns. So you're going around this blowdown. You have to cross this stream. You're going over this. Well, there was this little stream that we had to cross, and it was quite a noisy little system that was coming out of the mountains. And so it was kind of had that, and we weren't hearing the stream. And so Forrest stops and he goes, "Hey, do you feel like we're going in the right direction?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "Do you not?" He goes, "I don't." I go, "You don't feel like we're going in the right direction?" He goes, "I don't." I go, "Okay, well, that's like him just saying that
Mhm.
is cause for me to get my GPS out and say, okay, like where honestly are we looking?" And so like I get the GPS out and I look and we're literally heading in the not the opposite direction, but we're heading basically 180 degrees from where camp is. And so
Wow.
we're instead of going straight across the camp, we've cut down and the forest has just kind of pushed us down. And so right at that moment, I'm looking at this and a brown bear. We've been looking at a 9 foot, 9.5 foot brown bear boar in this area all morning. And so all of a sudden he huffs at us at like 18 yards and it's pitch black and Forrest goes, "Hey, what is that?" And I go, "That I'm sure that's a brown bear." And he's like, "He's right there." And I go, "Yeah, I know." And we have to walk right at him. Like that's where our GPS is telling us to go. And so I just go, "Hey, bear." And we hear some noise and whatever. We grab our bags and we end up going there. And, then you're looking at the GPS, you're a mile from camp, point 0.8, point 0.9, point 0.7, point 0.6, and you start making your way up. And we ended up getting to our tent probably at about 1 a.m. or something like that. But we're crossing this flat, even when you're on your flat where you're camping,
Mhm.
we're hiking. And Forrest goes, "Where do you think we are?" And I go, I think we're just west of where camp was."
Mhm.
And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You do?" And I go, "Yeah, I think we're gonna walk right down this." And he's like, "Okay." He's like, "I'm not sure yet." And I said, "Okay." So then we walk. We ended up walking right to our tent. But it's amazing how in the dark of night, and this was a cloudy, kind of stormy night, so it, you start to lose your ability to navigate, and you start to like let the terrain start to kind of suck
Oh,
you
yeah.
down one way or suck you down another way, and then the bears and everything. So that was just a particular stalk that we did this year. But
It's
you know,
amazing. That can even happen on a way smaller scale. Like, this is not the same to any degree, but I had a similar thing happen in a piece of crown land that I'm very familiar with, and it was the difference of going into the light and coming out in the dark. And there had been some blowdowns on the way I normally go. I couldn't go that way, so I had to cut in, like, same as you, into the thick spruce, and I got turned around in this not very big area, like, doesn't compare to your story whatsoever. But I'm just saying, it took a very small amount of time to
mhm,
completely turn me around, and I was like, "It's so tight in here. I know the truck is this way,
mhm,
but this is where people completely lose it when they're in the woods sometimes because
mhm.
they just get turned around, they get lost, and it's panic, right?" I was like, "No,
Yep,
no, no, you're fine. Just
yep,
keep going this way. Nothing looks right, but just keep going in this direction." Because I know, thankfully, and I did eventually come out. I came out way farther east of where I should or west of
mhm,
where I should have been.
mhm.
But yeah, it's wild how that can
It
happen. So,
happens. It happens pretty easily, actually.
mhm,
And when you're in the dark of night, even in an area that you think it can happen pretty easily.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for coming on. I really appreciate it. Can you let
Thank you.
everybody know how they can find you and all of your work?
Yeah, just search my name on Donnie Vincent on YouTube and Instagram, and I think it's Donnie underscore Vincent on Instagram, and
Okay.
yeah, check it out, and you'll be able to find us. And we have a new film that will be coming out. I would bet it's going to be out officially in January.
Oh, amazing.
Yep. Yep, and already working on some other projects. So yeah, um,
Fantastic.
I'm looking forward to this one coming out. So
Amazing. Thank you very much. Again,
thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Hopefully we
Thanks,
can
brother.
reconnect at some point, and
Absolutely.
we'll continue this. I could probably talk to you all day. but I appreciate
Yeah,
the
you let me know anytime, and if I'm in town, I'll make time.
awesome. Thank you very much. Have
Thank
a
you.
good day.
Yep, you as well.